Streaming now through the Sportsnet mobile app. This is The Big Show. Sportsnet 960 The Fan, Calgary.
All right, welcome to the program. We are underway on this Friday. Happy Friday. Alongside Will Nault, I'm Pat Steinberg. Riley's back at Sportsnet 960 World Control downtown. We're here for the next 4 hours, getting you set for the Flames and Vancouver Canucks. Preseason game number 4 is a go tonight. 7 o'clock face-off, warm-up at 6 o'clock. Welcome to the Cat and Fiddle. That's where we are until 6 o'clock tonight. We're hanging out on the patio, the brand-new redesigned patio. You got the TV, you got the picnic tables, the great spot.
I don't remember the patio being like this.
This is, they've done a lot of work on this patio over the last few years, and they have turned it into a absolutely great spot. TV is an awesome touch as well. You can watch the game out here if tonight's game's on television. This is if you wanted to watch the Flames and Canucks tonight. It's on Sportsnet 1. You could watch it right here at the Cat and Fiddle. We'll tell you more about what we're doing here as the afternoon goes along. But it is a preseason game day, and our first night seeing Jacob Markstrom. He'll get the start in net. He'll split time with Dustin Wolf. But Wolf's the guy I'm most interested in seeing tonight. He's going to play half a game, a period, whatever the case may be, and maybe the only time we see him this preseason. Sounds like they're sending a pretty young lineup to Kent Washington tomorrow too. But I'm excited to see Dustin Wolf for the first time in a spot like this where he's going to be a pro all season long. I'm curious to see what he's all about tonight.
It'll be a nice kind of reward for him, a guy that's been, certainly working towards this first season as a pro. I'm with you. I'll be curious to see what he looks like. He'll be the guy coming in halfway through, so it'll be a little tougher for him. But it's a big night for Dustin Wolf, and it's been a lot of Dan Vladar and Adam Werner so far in goal for the Flames this preseason. So it's a big spot for him, and it'll be a nice. I think if I were to guess, he'll play tonight and tomorrow in Kent, and
Wolf.
Yeah, and then after that we'll likely see him in Stockton's camp. But a nice kind of close to his first NHL camp this weekend.
It's interesting how they're working their goaltenders. It's interesting to see that those first 2 games was Vladar-Werner split, and then Vladar got the whole game on Wednesday.
Yeah.
Interesting to see those 3 guys get heavy workloads early. I think Darryl was talking about it today. Pretty safe to say, fair to say that Dan Vladar, the most used goaltender so far in the preseason. Now Markstrom finally gets his first game, but he's not going to go the full way, and we won't start to see him getting full game lengths until towards the end of the preseason. Not right or wrong, I don't agree or disagree. I'm just interested to see how Darryl Sutter's going about using his goaltenders in this camp. It's kind of different than we've seen other teams in the preseason, other Flames incarnations in the preseason doing. It's been kind of interesting to see.
Yeah, I think, it's certainly been a lot of Dan Vladar early in this preseason. It's very easy to see he's played the most games. He's played the only full game so far. And, I think we knew that was going to be a little bit of a battle going in for that backup spot. And, I think this is what we expected, especially when you saw the groups early in the training camp, that, as we get later in this this preseason, you're starting to see more of what we're going to get on opening night. And, I think it was you and I, and I don't think it was a secret to anyone, that middle group, those first 3 days of camp. I mean, that's their roster. So, as we get later in the preseason, you're getting more and more of those players getting in game action, and I would expect after the game in Kent, outside of maybe the 2-3 battles we're watching, you're going to see most of what this Flames team looks like come October.
Yeah, and don't expect a very veteran-heavy lineup tomorrow in Kent, Washington either. I think that's going to be a lot of the younger players, some of the guys who haven't even gotten into preseason games. This might be their only opportunity tomorrow on the road. Here's what tonight's going to look like. We told you the goaltenders, Markstrom and Wolf, will split. You've got Elias Lindholm between Matthew Tkachuk and Blake Coleman once again. Brad Richardson plays with Johnny Gaudreau and Andrew Mangiapane. you've got Michael Backlund with Dylan Dubé and Brett Ritchie, Byron Frazee, Justin Kirkland, Walker Dewar as the fourth line. On the back, Zadorov with Anderson, Shillington with Tanev, Mackey with Goodbranson. A few things I wanted to address because I saw them on social media when I put the lines out there earlier today. First of all, when is Monahan going to play? Towards the end. Final 3 games of the preseason, final 3 games of the preseason is when you'll see him. Maybe not all 3, but those final 3 is when you'll start to see Monahan get in. Same thing with Hanifin. There's nothing to worry about. This is what Darryl Sutter said right from the start. Both these guys who were coming off of surgery late last season, they were going to ease them into preseason. They have been full participants at skate during practice. It's just the preseason games they're easing him into. So nothing to worry about there. Monahan, Hanifin are going to be good to go for the start of the regular season. The other thing, and this is the conversation that we wanted to get into, the other thing that people were like, what is Richardson doing between Gaudreau and Mangiapane? Why wouldn't they put Backlund there? Well, let me tell you why. Because it's all about who they're icing in the preseason, and they're trying not to juggle things around too much with their preseason lineup. This is my take anyway. I'm curious if you see it the same way. They're trying not to juggle things up with the preseason lineup compared to where things are in their practices and their training.
No, Pat, I think Richardson's going to play with Gaudreau on opening night. I think you're not reading into this properly.
I don't think that's correct. I think that's
of course that's what they're doing.
Correct.
God, people on Twitter lose their S every time something minor is up. Like, no, Brad Richardson's not playing with Gaudreau on opening night.
The reason why he's there is because Monahan's not playing, so he's taking Monahan's place in what you would call the ghost lineup or the penciled-in lineup right now. Backlund is supposed to be and likely going to be playing with Dubé and Pitlick all year long. So to have him back with Dubé, who didn't play the last game, a lot of guys didn't play the last game. So this time around, they're going to put Backlund back on that line and Brett Ritchie kind of as that placeholder, if you will, for Pitlick. That's what it comes down to me. And it really, you can start to see exactly how Darryl Sutter has things penciled in for opening night on October 16th. I think that based on how practices have gone and what the preseason has shown us, I think you have a pretty darn good idea as to how things are going to shake down for that opening night. You know that Lindholm line is going to be together. You know Monahan's going to be between Gaudreau and Mangiapane. You know Backlund and Dubé are going to be a pair. Whether or not Pitlick is ready to go, we'll wait and see. And then you know Richardson's going to be between Lucic and Trevor Lewis. And the way that they have kept certain trios together and certain wingers together in the preseason, I think speaks really loudly to that.
100%. And, again, I think the one thing to read off of tonight's lineup, Pat, is that what we've expected and the Lindholm-Coleman-Kachuk combo, that thing is ironclad. Like, that thing will be a line come opening night. That's exactly what I read into this. And, again, Richardson is a placeholder for Sean Monahan. That third line tonight with Dubé and Ritchie on the wing with Michael Backlund down the middle, yeah, I see that very much as being a possibility at some point. It might not be October 16th, but at some point in the season, as we've seen kind of throughout the training camp, Ritchie's been a guy who's rotated in a couple different spots.
Yeah,
that's what I see when I look at tonight's lineup. And as I texted you earlier today, I think the Kirkland, Frazee, and Dewar line is just another carrot for them, a little bit of a reward. They've played decent, and as I think you've mentioned a couple of times, it's I don't think it's a massive secret. The head coach is a pretty big fan of Dewar.
Well, he's talked glowingly about him. He's using him again here. He's kind of used that Frazee, Kirkland, Dewar line as a shutdown line, and look, none of those three guys are going to start the season in the NHL. All three guys are going to go to the American League, and that's not to be derogatory. That's not to be mean or anything like that. But I think, for instance, if Trevor Lewis gets hurt, or if Milan Lucic gets hurt, or if Lucic has to move further up the lineup because somebody else gets hurt, I can absolutely see if Walker Duehr takes this and carries it into his first professional season in Stockton, I can absolutely see him being a call-up early in the season or into December, January, something like that. I think the coach is a big fan. I think the coach likes his size, likes his speed, and really appreciates the summer he had. So, yeah, I think that he's a fan of all three of those guys. And as you said when we were getting the show ready, that line of Fraze, Kirkland, Duehr getting another opportunity here tonight. And I think it's a reward because I think he feels that they've played pretty well so far for what he's asking them to do this preseason.
Yeah, and I think, we'll probably see them again tomorrow in Kent. And as we've talked about, I don't know if we've talked about this on the air or off the air, Pat. Not going to be in October because I don't think we see him in the battles. But if there's injuries, if there's suspensions, if there's any sort of absence, I don't know how far down the list Duehr is when Sutter needs to call somebody up, depending who the absent player is.
Yep.
I think Duehr's done some things where Daryl Sutter looks at it and says, yeah, I'd be comfortable giving him a 2-game call-up in November.
Well, he definitely likes him. So that's a player to watch as training camp. Well, not so much training camp, but certainly a player to keep your eye on as the Stockton Heat season begins. I believe that Stockton coaches and Stockton staff have all left to go back to Northern California, and they will start setting up their training camp. It'll be the first training camp in the American League for brand new Stockton Heat head coach Mitch Love. So they've moved down to Northern California. It's funny, the fact that we have not seen all that much change in the practice lines for this team, and the fact that you can really start to see the way that this team is going to shake down for opening night. I remember the first day of training camp, that Thursday that we did our first show from the Envision Custom Renovations Hot Stove Lounge, and we were sitting there talking, and how much change, how much juggling, how much differentiation are we going to see in these forward lines and D pairings as camp continues? Well, I think that the D is still a work in progress. We're going to talk to Labardius about that a little bit later on this hour, but I think the forward lines have been basically set in stone right from the start of training camp. I think that Daryl looked at those lines, said this is the way we want to start the season. We want to get them playing together now, practicing together now, knowing that things might get split apart here and there in the preseason. But I think you can pencil those in. I think you know your four centers.
Yep.
The only question now is Pitlick going to be good to go for the start of the regular season? That's kind of the one fly in the ointment at this time.
Exactly. I think, you're trying to be as healthy as you can, and we've talked about it a lot, whether it's the practice groups or like we've seen the line structured. I just think it's very, very clear that Daryl Sutter wants to get a lot of familiarity with these players, wants to try and get chemistry the best that it can be, and I think that's what we're seeing so far in camp. And that's why I say, Pat, after this weekend and the game in Kent, I wouldn't be surprised if those final couple of preseason games are outside, like I say, the 2-3 battles we're maybe watching with the Shillingtons and the Goddens of the world.
Yeah,
I think it's pretty close to what you will expect or what you will see October 16th.
Taking a look at who's not playing in this game, the group that was practicing when I was leaving the Saddle Dome today, I think you're going to see Ruzicka, Pelche, Godin, Phillips, Pospisil potentially, maybe
tomorrow.
Tomorrow in Kent, Washington. Maybe get some preseason debuts. Maybe we see Emilio Pettersson. Maybe we see Ryan Francis. I think that you're going to see a good chunk of guys that are on the bubble or going to Stockton. For a guy like Emilio Pettersson, for a guy, if Ryan Francis were to be able to get into a game, maybe he does, maybe he doesn't. That's a big opportunity. That's your first chance and probably only chance to make an impact on this management and coaching staff.
Do we see, again, there's the veteran rules. So do you see the Valimakis and the Stones and the Lucic and the Lewises of the world?
Yes, I think you got to send 6 or something like that, or 5. So I think Valimaki will probably travel. He would count as a veteran.
Do you think it's a Vladar Wolf mix tomorrow?
Vladar Wolf could absolutely see
or
that. Or
Werner Wolf?
Yeah, maybe Werner Wolf.
And then Werner goes to Stockton after?
And that's
could be a potential.
The buzz around the Saddle Dome has been that after the game, Kent, they'll come back. Not that kind of buzz.
Okay, sorry.
The scuttlebutt around.
There could be that kind of buzz, though. The building's that old enough.
There is some buzzing in that building. Yeah, we're getting a new one soon. They're going to come back after the game tomorrow, and then a lot of guys will probably get airlifted into Stockton for that training camp and go from there. So that's kind of what we're thinking in that regard. A couple of texts, 960-960. I'm on the fence with this team. Not bad players, but not a fast team at all. Do you think that'll hurt us or hurt them? Look, this is a fast league. I don't think there's any doubt about that. You need to play fast, and I thought Ryan...
Thinking of the Chris Jones clip right now. Football's a violent sport. Hockey's a fast sport.
Fast sport. Ryan Huska was talking about playing fast with us on our post-game show last night or Wednesday night. And
Darryl Setter's talked about in his post-games mobility on the back end. So, yeah, I think it's pretty clear.
And it's not just about a bunch of guys that skate fast. It's also about getting pucks off the stick quickly and making decisions quickly and moving the puck quickly. That is just as much about, being speedy and playing fast in this day and age. But, yeah, do I see them as the fastest, speediest skating team in the NHL? No, that's probably not their forte when you take a look at their roster. This says Richie's the ideal 13th forward, just skates up and down the wall, north to south, south to north, and he's physical on the forecheck. Actually does back check regardless if he's playing on the first, second, third, or fourth line. He plays the same. Richie, I think, is very much the 13th, 14th forward on this team right now, and I don't think Darryl Sutter would hesitate putting him in if an injury happens or a shakeup needs to happen. I would be, unless Pitlick can't go, I'd be surprised if we saw Richie in the opening day lineup October 16th in Edmonton. But you don't worry about him sitting watching games and being in the press box. You don't worry about him developing. At this stage of his career, he's fine being a guy that plays once every 4 or 5 games, and that's probably, at least to start, the type of role that we're going to be talking about with him.
It's true, and I do see that type of role. We've seen in training camp, Pat, he's rotated on a bunch of different lines.
Yeah.
So I think that's probably how they will use him going forward. And is he a guy that plays 60 games? Maybe not, but certainly think that there's going to be ample time for him to rotate and find his way on different lines at different points of the season. And if it's in short stints, he can play in the top 6. If it's a longer stint, you're probably more comfortable in the bottom 6. But, yeah, I do see him as a guy that is a bit of that Swiss Army knife and, can be used in a lot of different slots.
We are live at the Cat and Fiddle this afternoon.
Chris Chucko will not make the team.
No, I don't think former first-round pick Chucko is still playing at this stage of the game. We're live at the Cat and Fiddle. We're here till 6 o'clock. Easy to find, the Cat and Fiddle on 16th Avenue Northwest, 16th Ave and 5th Street Northwest. We're sitting here on the patio. Gorgeous, brand-new, redesigned patio. Cat and Fiddle's open 7 days a week. They've got the craft and domestic beer selection, 28 draft beers. They've got a great pub-style menu. You go inside, you got the Golden Tea, the Big Buck Hunter, you got the VLTs.
What's your game?
I'm a Golden Tea guy. I'm not very good at Golden Tea.
One time you and I were here, and you beat me at Golden Tea, and then I beat you at Buck Hunter. I think that's usually how it works.
Slaughtered me at Buck Hunter.
And you slaughtered me at Golden Tea. So.
I've learned some of those tips playing Golden Tea.
And the shortcuts in certain holes.
Exactly, because if you play, going back to the Shanks days when we were doing, so every once in a while, it'd be like an 8:30 or an 8 o'clock game, and I'd stay afterwards with the old Shanks crew, and it'd be like, they'd shut the bar down early. It wasn't busy. It'd be like 1 a.m.
4:30 a.m. You're still pounding beers.
I don't think that on a Wednesday night. But I'd stay and they'd show me some tips. I'd play Golden Tea with the manager and a couple of the bartenders, and they know the game so well. They're like, oh, this is hole 4 on Paris, so you're gonna want to do C1 off the tee. You're like, what? Yeah, you're gonna go over right, 3 to the right, C1. You're gonna on the green every time. How do you know this? There's a building right there. You're going to go through the building. No, trust me. Do it. 3 to the right, C1. No word of a lie. Do that, and it's on the green.
No, it's crazy.
Oh, my goodness. How do you guys
That's
learn
why the guys
these
that
things?
play, guys or girls that play a lot are really good because you know the tricks like that.
I approach Golden Tea the way I'd approach it on the golf course. I'm like, okay, I'm going to try and drive it as straight as I can.
Drive her head down the middle of the fairway.
No,
Still one of my favorite stories of all time.
I was like, new driver, too. Driving range. It's like, okay, I've got about. Usually, when I go to the range, I try to work on my short game or my irons or whatever. But then, I was like, okay, I got 20 balls left. Let's take out the driver. Let's just crush a few here, have some fun. I don't have a very good swing, but every once in a while, if you can hit a good one, you're like, okay. Like the third swing. Ping! I'm like, that didn't sound quite right.
Man,
and
there
next
goes the
thing you know,
driver head.
there's the driver head down
further than the ball.
Went about 30 yards further than the ball did at the old Highland Park.
And by the way, you were not lying. There's the TV right here on the patio, and then there's 2 chalkboards with every type of beer on
100%.
tap. Wide selection. You've got your premium and your craft, and, of course, your classic domestics. This is the place to be on a Friday.
Cat and Fiddle, where good times and good food come together, featuring 16 screens with sound for your favorite sporting events. Every Flames game this year will be on with sound here at the Cat. We're keeping the Flames conversation going. Peter Labardius joins us next. Things are about to change after this weekend. We'll tell you how and why. Next, big show's underway. Sportsnet 960 The Fan.
Flames Insider, Peter Labardius, brought to you by the Gemini Group Home Renovations. Your home renovations should be a reflection of who you are. Give your home the Gemini difference. The Gemini Group, now offering Air Miles Reward Miles. Visit GeminiGroup.ca.
Welcome back to the program. Big show rolls on from the Cat and Fiddle on this Friday afternoon alongside Will Nault. My name is Pat Steinberg. Let's say hello to our Calgary Flames color voice and Flames Insider. Peter Labardius is with us. Hi, Lou.
Hi, guys.
Okay, so we got a game tonight. We got a game tomorrow night, and then things kind of change. It kind of moves into another phase after this weekend of training camp, doesn't it? There's going to be a definite delineation after the game tomorrow in Kent, Washington.
Yeah, I'd be quite surprised if there wasn't, Pat. It makes a lot of sense with 3 games left in Edmonton, in Winnipeg, and then closing out at home. So Darryl even talked today about the fact that, 8 games in the preseason has been a lot to manage in terms of trying to get everybody in and getting them some reps, but not too many. So, we're going to see a fairly veteran-laden lineup, especially up front tonight. And I guess on the back as well. Number 1 goal is going to start the game, and Jacob Markstrom, first preseason GM. Then, as we chatted about in the post-game show after the game against Seattle, we'll see a relatively youthful lineup, probably an Abbotsford-like lineup in Kent, Washington. And then from there, my guess is you get down to around 30, 31 in preparation for the final week of the preseason.
So it's kind of been an interesting camp, and we're going to see Markstrom and Wolf for the first time tonight. I just found it really interesting, and it's neither agreeing nor disagreeing. It's because every coach has kind of got their own different ways of going about things, but kind of picking up on that. I found it really interesting to see how Darryl has opted to use his goaltenders, a lot of Vladar and Werner early. Tonight we finally see Markstrom, the way that he has used his different lineups, and we still haven't seen Monahan and Hanifin. We know that. I found it quite interesting to see how he structured his different preseason lineups, knowing, Lou, that they are playing a lot of preseason games and playing 8 of them.
Well, it's true. I don't know what adjective I would use for sure. But, I would say that the first part or first phase is about evaluation for a lot of guys trying to, keep their hopes alive of making the opening day roster. Or the other caveat, Pat, to think about, you and I chatted about this morning in the Hot Stove Lounge, is everybody thinks about, the 22 or 23 guys that make it. Well, you also, if you're not going to be there, you also want to be, first in the call-up market too. So the first part is about the evaluation process and getting, your veterans enough reps. And then for me, phase 2 or phase 3 is about, okay, let's get down to business.
Lou, you still there? Nope, he sure isn't. Dropped out.
I knew it was not going to survive quite early on.
Yeah, it was a little It was definitely a little choppy right from the get-go. Peter Labardius is with us. We'll reconnect with the color voice of the Calgary Flames in just a couple of seconds. He joins us every day in the 2 o'clock hour here on the Big Show on Sportsnet 960 The Fan. And we were talking about it in the last segment. It's a different approach with Darryl Sutter than it was, going back to Bill Peters and his 2 training camps, and before that with Glenn Gulletson. I just always find it interesting how different coaches decide to go about it. And in this case, as Lou said, 8 preseason games, that's a lot of time.
Yeah.
That's a lot of there's a lot of ground to cover.
And because of that, you don't want to have, I don't think anyways, your best players or your ideal opening night lineup play early on in the preseason for a couple of different reasons. A, injuries, and B, you like to get that perfect synchronization, perfect chemistry as close to the regular season as possible. So, I don't think we should be surprised this is the way it's played out, especially, Pat, as we've talked about a number of times, the way the groups were structured the first 3 days of camp before they even played a game. You could tell pretty easily that middle group was what we expect come opening night. We've got Peter Labardius back with us. And, Lou, I guess, as we get set for tonight's game, what are 3 things that need to be determined on that blue line? What are you looking for with this team when it comes to the defense group?
Well, I would probably just state it this way, Will. In Anderson, Tanev, and Hanifin, you have 3 pairs that I think you're very confident and comfortable with. But finding a second pairing that fits, a third pairing that works, with more than a few options of players who you could plug and play in a number of those different spots, that to me is the part that's left to be determined. I'd be pretty surprised. Now, who knows? But I'd be quite shocked if it wasn't a Tanev pairing potentially when the season started. And, Darryl makes no bones about it. I mean, I couldn't agree more. Not just Darryl. So I've thought it for a long time. You need a really solid top 4, especially when it comes, to 5-on-5 play. You can use other people in other spots, but that area is monumental. And I don't think I'm speaking out of turn to say that, there's lots of unanswered questions there. Branson goes back in tonight. We're going to see Zadorov again. So no one in that part of the group, Oliver Shillington's had a couple of nice back-to-back performances for the most part. But that's it, Will. And that might be, for me, the most important thing in trying to solidify that group to get ready for opening day.
Peter Labardius, color voice of the Calgary Flames, along with us. And we were talking a little bit this morning, Lou, getting ready for the pregame show. And when talking about, you mentioned Shillington, there's a lot still to be determined on this blue line, and a lot of things that need to be determined and need to kind of play themselves out here in the next few days, next few games as training camp continues. What are those things? What needs to be determined here?
Well, I think, Patty, it's just what I talked about. You've got to go from 3, which you feel really good about, and get to 6. And 7, and there's lots of options. But we're not there yet. And I would suggest at this point in time, some people need more reps in order to give you a better idea of what you have and what you don't have. And, I don't know how many different ways I can put it. You need to find, very likely, first and foremost, the guy who you're going to pencil in the top 4 and go from there. And there's people there, here's how it works. In the summertime, you know who your group is, and you fill out the whiteboard. Then you go to camp in hopes that the whiteboard plays itself out. Doesn't always play itself out, or it takes more time than you'd like to get there and find combinations, get up to speed. The one thing, with the exception, I would actually say in the Abbotsford game on defense, I don't think and we heard it from Ryan Huska the other night, as a group, they haven't played fast enough.
Yeah.
They haven't gotten back to pucks the way they need to and move it and then support it and gap people up properly in the middle of the ice at times. So, yeah, there's work to be done. But the good news is there's more time, lots of time still left. And the other part that factors in is the more you indoctrinate, forwards into your lineup that are going to play, you'd like to think you'd be able to create more, have the puck more, and take a little less onus off that group. But, almost from Darryl's first press conference after day one, you can tell I wouldn't call it a worrying point, but I'd probably call it a bit of a worrisome point.
Lou, would you suggest that the forward group is a little less uncertain, a little less in flux than what we're talking about on defense?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I don't see a lot of changes now. We don't know how long Tyler Pitlick's going to be out. He has practiced and he has practiced or played the one game before he left with an injury with Backlund and Dylan Dubé and that group. No, I don't foresee a lot of change, Pat, in that neighborhood. I think it's probably going to be what we expect for the most part. We'll see what happens, when Sean gets back in later next week. I would expect maybe the last two for him. I mean, he's looked pretty good at this point in time. Glenn Godden has done some really, really nice things in terms of, maybe being forward number 13, if Pitlick isn't ready to go. And you'd think, and we're going to see that tonight, where you see he probably move into that spot, at least for the time being. So, yeah, I don't think there's a lot there. As we stated right off the top, what is there is, can you get yourself into that, next small grouping so that if things happen, that you're going to be ready to go if you get the call.
Yeah. Well, and Will and I were talking about this last segment. You can definitely tell that, even when you take a look at the different preseason lineups that we've seen, when Daryl Sutter put those lines together for day one of training camp, he didn't put them together to, try them for a few days and go from there. He put those forward lines together so that they could work together, practice together, get familiar with one another. And, yeah, there might be some mixing and matching here and there come preseason games because you're combining groups, so on and so forth. But it sure does feel like you can start to pencil and almost pen in those forward lines for October 16th.
Yeah, it's very close to that, I would suggest. We never know what's going to happen for sure. You hope everybody stays healthy. But, Pat, that's why, in some of our early discussions, and Will with you too, is a lot of times I'm far more focused on non-game days where everybody practices to see who's in those groups together than you are in the games. Because preseason games at different points of the preseason, as this has been all about, is for different reasons. And it truly does. And it goes basically from an evaluation, make sure you're pushing or try to push your way into the group. And then the best part of the preseason is about, okay, you got to be ready for opening day. So, you're going to see more special teams work practice, and again, really honing in on the group that's going to play.
Lou, just before we let you go, it is Friday, October 1st. I know Ron Robison talked earlier today to officially kick off the 2021-22 Western Hockey League season. The Calgary Hitmen are in Lethbridge this evening. It's been obviously a very tough 18 months for everybody, but especially the Canadian Hockey League. We did not have a Memorial Cup for 2 consecutive years. And last year, of course, the Western Hockey League was able to get off the ground, but played just inside their own province. How excited are you for the return of the 68-game regular season and for the young men who get to compete once again against their peers?
Well, I'm excited on all kinds of different levels. Just I know what a struggle it's been for the people in the league, and I've been so fortunate to be around it pretty much my whole life and have some great relationships in the league. Really, really difficult. And then, as you guys both know, in junior hockey, you only have so many years to be able to do it. And in a lot of cases, we go on and on guys that make the NHL or play for hockey, but let's not forget about the fact that for a lot of players in the Western Hockey League, playing major junior is the cream of the crop as far as their careers. So, when you lose so much time, and if you're a player in that window or a team in that window that, was prepared to be really good, because those things happen generally in 3-year cycles too. So I'm really excited. I just hope completely for the best, the health, and, delighted for the kids. And I guess the last thing quickly, Will, is this. It has truly been a while since I can remember a 16-year-old crop like the one the Western Hockey League is going to feature. We know who the headliner is, Connor Bedard. People have heard that name, and you're going to hear more of that name. And well, guys, if he plays in a tournament at Christmas time, but he is not the only one. Braden Yager in Moose Jaw, Zach Benson in Winnipeg, Tanner Molendijk, a defenseman in Saskatoon, forward in Seattle by the name of Sam Aremba, Riley Height in Prince George. It's been a while since I've seen, a high-end group quite like this.
Looking forward to it getting back. I'm happy that it's back on a normal schedule for Lou and for you, Lou, and you'll be able to get out and watch some games and be able to get back to watching the thing we know.
That
you love
guy's
so
never
much.
met a game he hasn't liked.
It's good. It's good to see it back.
Well,
And
you might point there, yeah.
I echo the sentiments. Just how hard that last year was, and if you're a 17, 18-year-old to lose essentially an entire year of playing hockey. At least they got some in the Western League
or
in the queue.
As a 20, who that was
your overage year.
As Lou just mentioned, that was the peak of your career, and it's gone. It's just it's really unfortunate.
And then the Ontario kids who didn't get to play at all.
It was
rough last year. We'll see you in a few hours, pal. Have a good rest of your afternoon. Thanks, Lou.
Okay, fiddle away, fellas.
Flames Insider, Peter Lubardius, brought to you by the Gemini Group Home Renovations. Your home renovations should be a reflection of who you are. Give your home the Gemini difference. The Gemini Group, now offering Air Miles Reward Miles. Visit GeminiGroup.ca.
All right, the Jays' playoff chances now on life support. We know that. But there's very much a silver lining to all this. That's when we come back on the big show, Sportsnet 960, The Fan.
You're locked on to the big show, Calgary Sports Talk in the afternoon. Okay, smart speaker, play Sportsnet 960.
And the 3-2 pitch is a slider tapped out to the shortstop. Wade steps forward. He's got it. Tosses to first in time to finish off the ball game. The New York Yankees slug 5 home runs and defeat the Toronto Blue Jays on a night where opportunity was left in front of them on the base paths, as the Blue Jays might have had their season's last gasp come to a close here tonight at Rogers Center.
I don't want to talk about it, Will. That one stung last night. That one was a tough one to wrap your head around. As Ben Wagner just said, you heard it here on Sportsnet 960 The Fan, plenty of opportunity left on the base paths last night for the Blue Jays. They just could not get it done with men aboard. That atmosphere when Vladdy went yard was awesome. It's too bad the Yankees answered shortly thereafter with a massive inning of themselves for themselves. But the one piece of good news, I'll give you the small silver lining before we get into the large silver lining. Good news is Red Sox lost again. They missed a golden opportunity too. They dropped 2 of 3 to Baltimore, so they do not gain any ground on Toronto last night. And they don't gain, in fact, they lose ground to Seattle, who was idle last night. So a missed opportunity in a huge way for Boston. There's a small silver lining. Toronto a game back of the Mariners and the Red Sox. 3 games each left. Jays have the Orioles. Red Sox have the Nationals. Seattle takes on the L.A. Angels. Not out of the question, Will. It's not completely done, but I think life support or hanging on by a thread or whatever analogy or metaphor you want to use, that's what we're talking about right now for the Jays. They got to win out. They got to sweep the Orioles starting tonight at 5 o'clock.
Yeah, and you know they can't lose another game. Sorry, that's bottom line. What has to happen, and they probably need some help along the way. It was not a good start to this final stretch of 6 games to lose 2 or 3 to the Yankees, and yeah, I think it would be silly to look at it otherwise and say they've got much of a chance without winning all 3. It was a tough one last night with 4 hits, all being home runs. We'll see what the weekend brings, but I'm with you. I think this is a team that needs to win the remainder of their games to have any sort of shot at the postseason.
Let's, for the sake of this conversation, as much as I don't want to, let's assume that they don't make it. How big has this run and this stretch and this last month been, being in a tooth-and-nail playoff race and feeling like so much is on the line every night? How big could that be for this very young ball team's development? How big could this be for them as they move into next year where the expectations will be even higher?
I think it's massive. I think that, again, you know, kind of what Stephen Brunt's talked about a couple of times on our station, certainly talked about it this morning. This is you know, a team that has never been in this spot before. Yes, you can tell me all you want. They made the playoffs last year, but that was a 60-game sample and an expanded playoff.
And a best-of-3 expanded playoffs.
Correct.
Yeah.
So it wasn't really anything close to what they've been through this year. And unlike 2016, Pat, when this team was in the playoffs last, this is just the beginning for this group.
Yeah.
You know, in 2016, with the age of all that core, with who they brought in, you could tell that it was a short-lived competitive window. This seems like it's going to be the beginning of a fairly lengthy, whether it's a half a decade, 6 years, 7 years. Again, nothing is guaranteed, nothing's given. I'm not saying that it's automatic. They've been waiting to make the playoffs for the next 5 years, but they're just starting this competitive window with this young core. And I think to go through something like this, and you might not ultimately get to where you want to get to, and that is the playoffs. You might fall just short of that goal. But I think as you prepare for another 162 next year, well, depending on how the CBA talks go, maybe it's 100. But you're preparing yourself now, and you're getting used to being through a September where it's all, again, not do-or-die games, but you're getting up for important games almost every day in September. You're in a divisional race. Yes, maybe not for the title, but you're getting used to being in that playoff push. And I do think with a lot of this core group going to stay with this organization and this team for the next, as I mentioned, half decade,
Yep.
I think it's super important with what they've done this year.
I'm with you. I really do. And that's why, as bummed as I was about the loss last night, I still see a big-time silver lining in what this season has been for the Blue Jays. And, yes, it'll feel a little empty to not see them playing playoff baseball, and we'll see. Maybe they still will. But, yeah, regardless of how this ends, and if they don't get the help or they don't win out against Baltimore, then I still think that there's a lot of value to what we have seen so far this year, and specifically how important this last 4 or 5 weeks has been for the development of this Jays team. Good on them. And, hey, this Yankees team, that's a team chock full of all-stars and a group that has gotten hot. at the right time, the way a good team is supposed to do. So good on the Yankees for coming into Toronto, taking 2 of 3, tough atmosphere. Good on them. Let's. They do have some difficult decisions. If we are talking about the Blue Jays missing the postseason, they do have some difficult decisions to make. Namely, and we've talked about it for weeks, but seems a little bit more urgent, a little bit more upon us now. They've got to figure out what they're doing with Robbie Ray. They got to figure out what they're doing with Marcus Semien. Do they bring one or both back for next year? Does Rogers, our parent company, have the are they willing to commit the resources to do that? There's some big time decisions that need to be made. I lean towards Semien over Ray, but if they could bring them both back, that'd be great. If you're only bringing one back, I'm hoping they bring back Marcus Semien with his 44 home runs and one of the best second base seasons we've ever seen in a Blue Jays uniform.
Yeah, some really tough decisions, and we talked about this with Shai Davidi last week. It's not only just those two guys, which I think is front of mind for a lot of people, but is this a chance? Do you potentially lock up long-term a guy like Teoscar Hernandez? Is this the time to do that, even though he's under team control for a few more years? Do you try to get out in front of it? I know Jeff Passan of ESPN, I think, was the guy who reported that they've already had discussions. They tried to lock him up last winter, and the Teoscar camp didn't bite, and it's a good thing they probably didn't for their own sake because he had a fabulous year.
That's one of those times when betting on yourself worked, hey?
Yeah. Not ready to sign long-term just yet. But, yeah, I think ownership has shown us in the last 2 to 3 years that they are willing to spend money. Mm-hmm. Hyun-Jin Ryu was a big signing when really they weren't in a competitive window or a competitive spot, at least not at that point. Again, they made the playoffs in a 60-game season and an expanded playoff that year, but nobody expected that to happen, and I don't think anyone expected them to get the previous reigning NL ERA leader at the time. So they've shown us they're willing to spend. Randall Grichuk's extension, albeit not great. They've spent money. So I do think the commitment is there, and ownership certainly believes in this management group and what they've, presented or certainly built here in the last 2 to 3 years. So I think the resources will be there.
Yep.
Just a matter of putting it in the right spots and making the right bets going forward. And I don't know if I see Semien and Ray both being back. I think best case scenario is one, and I just think the important thing is to prepare yourself and not have the sky is falling attitude if they don't both come back next season.
Okay, now what is this expanded Major League Baseball playoff format that you wanted to talk about? We can dive into it a little bit more on Monday, too.
We'll have to get into next week when we do playoff predictions
and
look at the way things are structured. But I wonder what that looks like, if there's a potential to do that at some point. I know they did it and they experimented with that 60-game season. I think it was well received. I don't know what that looks like, but I wonder. I mean, the more I think about it, the Dodgers is a great example this year. You're going to win over 100 games,
yep,
and you're going to play a one-game playoff.
Yeah.
It's brutal. But I also understand the excitement of a one-game playoff. So I'm kind of torn on it. I want to see an expanded playoff, but the problem is because they have the 5 teams right now that get in, you have to almost go to 8 because if you go to 6, it's kind of hard to structure it with the 6th seed playing, I guess, the number 1 overall seed. I guess you could do that.
Yep.
But 6 is tough because then how do you get to round 2 and round 3, right? You have to kind of almost go to 8. And I don't know if they're willing to do that.
Knowing how reticent baseball is to ever – and they've been better, but it's usually a big rigmarole to get them to
usually you're an
make
easy
changes.
sell.
I am all for it. I love expanded playoffs. I'm just skeptical that baseball would ever go down that road. I'm all for it, and I think that's a conversation that is worth having. And look, I love the gimmicky NBA expanded playoffs.
And if you have an expanded baseball playoff, it'll be tougher for teams to just be like, we're not even close to winning, so we're not going to try. And you're getting a lot of that right now in baseball.
You are. It's the one – I don't know if it's the one, but it's one of the leagues where you can tank and tank effectively because – and we've seen it. We've seen it work. We've seen it not work, but it is a league where tanking is a thing.
With only 4 teams making it out of 50 in each league,
sometimes
American
you're like,
League, National League, it's if you're not even close, yeah, it's easy to just and it's easy to sell your fans. It's easy to sell your owner. It's one of those situations where, it's harder, for example, if you're the Calgary Flames, to go up to ownership and say, we want to mail it in, even though we're a team that could have additional playoff revenue if we have a great season.
We're live at the Cat and Fiddle this afternoon. We're here, 16th Avenue, 5th Street, Northwest. Come say hi to us as the afternoon goes along. Did you know the Cat and Fiddle is the official home of the Liverpool FC Calgary Fan Club? Liverpool games are an absolute party here at the Cat. Trivia Tuesdays, Wing Wednesdays, live music on Fridays, karaoke on Saturdays. They've got the large patio, partially covered, fully heated. That's where we're sitting right now. And every Flames game this year with sound on all 16 big screen TVs right here at the Cat and Fiddle. And here's the best part. You want to win a $100 gift card to the Cat and Fiddle? We've got you covered right now. All you got to do is text in your first and last name to 960-960 with the word Fiddle in all caps. Once again, Fiddle in all caps, your first and last name, 960-960. You'll be randomly entered into a draw for $100 here at the Cat and Fiddle, where good times and good food come together, featuring 16 screens with sound for your favorite sporting events. Canucks are in town tonight. They will not have Elias Pettersson or Quinn Hughes in the lineup tonight, but they will soon. That's when we come back. This is the Big Show into Hour 2 next on Sportsnet 960 The Fan.
The Big Show is live and streaming at sportsnet.ca/960. Sportsnet 960 The Fan, Calgary.
Well, Canucks GM Jim Benning did some work last night, got some deals done. They have now been made official, so the dollar figures changed a little bit from what we thought they were going to be last night.
Slightly.
And on the one hand, like a little bit of a significant change to what we thought. Quinn Hughes ends up signing a 6-year deal at $7.85 million, 6 times $7.85 for Quinn Hughes. Elias Pettersson ends up signing 3 times $7.35. So $7.35 over 3 years for Elias Pettersson, $7.85 over 6 years for Quinn Hughes. Two of the biggest and most interesting RFA contracts now off the board, and it is time on the Big Show today to take a deep dive.
More than just the box score. Serious analysis, in-depth stats. This is the Big Show Deep Dive on Sportsnet 960 The Fan.
Brought to you by PlayAlberta.ca. Sports betting is now live at PlayAlberta.ca. Enjoy a $20 free bet on your first deposit. Conditions apply. Must be 18 plus. If you gamble, use your game sense.
Let's start with Hughes. How did his deal get to 6? Because for the longest time, we had thought this was going to be a shorter deal, maybe closer to 3, and in the bridge deal, similar, we thought both he and Pettersson were going to sign those 3-year deals. Instead, all of a sudden, Hughes goes to 6. Here's Frank Saravelli. This is on the latest DFO Rundown podcast, our NHL insider, with kind of a synopsis of how it went from a short-term to a longer-term deal.
The Canucks were always in the 5s with Quinn Hughes in terms of their offers. And then the Rasmus Dahlin contract with the Buffalo Sabres 3 times 6 sort of blew that out of the water. So they knew at that point they were somewhere in the 6s. The Hughes camp was always sort of in that 6.5 range. And that was on a 3-year deal. And so then I think what happens is you take the numbers and you start to extrapolate them and you say, okay, well, what if we go to 4 years? What if we go to 6 years? What do those numbers look like? So to go from 6.5 on a 3-year deal to somewhere in the neighborhood of 7.75 by the time this is all said and done on a 6-year deal, I think it makes sense when you have a foundational pillar, a 50-point defenseman. And look, I know that people were all over Quinn Hughes for the season that he had last year. He's a special, special talent. You try and buy as many years as you can. So to rip off 6 at a time, you put $46 million or a little more than that in Quinn Hughes' pocket, some guaranteed life-changing dough. And then he's going to get a new deal at age 28 or 29. Which is a win for him. So he's going to have this next deal coming to him. The team buys up as many years as they can, almost 6 out of 8. And I think this is a win for the Canucks moving forward.
I like this deal for Vancouver. 7.85, that's a lot of money. I get all that. But you're getting Quinn Hughes for 6 years. At this stage of his career, he's locked up until the age of 27. Essentially, he's locked up until 28 when you take a look at his birthday. It's important. Like, the dollar figure, I think, is fair for both sides. As Frank just said right there, Will, I know he had a down year as a sophomore after an outstanding rookie campaign, but this guy is a stud defenseman. The raw tools, what this guy could end up being, like, I think Norris Trophy conversation is going to follow Quinn Hughes for most of his career. To get him locked up at 6 years and to get it done for under 8, I think if you're a Canucks fan, you got to be super happy about that.
Yeah, he'll be 28 very early into the final year of that deal. He's an October birthday. He's a couple of weeks away from being 22. So I think it's a fantastic deal for Vancouver. And to get that much term on that deal, I think as we near the end of it, again, you got to always be careful. There's been a couple of large bets for young players that haven't really worked out. Clayton Keller comes to mind, but I still think Quinn Hughes is going to be a player that earns every dollar of that contract. And again, I don't want to say it's going to be a massive steal by the tail end of it because it's almost $8 million, and that means he's going to have to be a Norris Trophy guy every single year, or certainly be in that conversation. I don't know if I see that, but I certainly think that this is a very good buy for Jim Benning and the Canucks.
And it was, I think, made,
especially when you look at the defense market and where it's gone.
Well,
skyrocketed.
Defense, like, everybody was getting paid this year. So to get him at
guys
that
that
deal,
are older than Quinn, but still.
I think, and I don't think that Vancouver's getting a bargain here by any means. I don't think that they ripped off the agency. I just think that they got a really fair deal, and they got the fair, like, for a guy who's about to turn 22 later this month. It's October already. Welcome to October. To get him to 6 years.
Birthdays, aren't we close to?
Yeah, Sunday. Kristen on Monday. Kristen on Saturday. Kristen Anderson of the Herald's always the day before. It's usually how it works. Your birthday's the same every year.
I was going to say, does she change every year? This year she's deciding it's October 2nd.
And then I'm the next day.
Bucks are going to have it. That's a nice little finish to your birthday.
It better be.
Bucks and Tom Brady in New England.
I don't want them to lose to Belichick. Come on. Brady's got to get over on
Bucks
Belichick.
by $1 million.
They're favored by 7 right now.
Sorry, I didn't want to sidetrack that.
It's okay. We are in October now. Today's October 1st.
That's turning 31 on Sunday.
1st of October every year is at the beginning of October, just so you know.
The New Year's Eve game is the 31st.
On the 31st. I just, like, if you can get a guy of that caliber, that potential, that ceiling, what he's already done. He's a 50-point defenseman already in his career, and he's 21, soon to be 22 years old. Get him signed for as long as you can. 6 was as long as they could go with their cap situation to get it manageable. Then there's Pettersson. That's a different situation. He gets the 3. He gets the bridge, and he is setting himself up to get paid at the end of this deal. But that is the price of doing business. He is a center iceman. He is a stud center iceman, and the Canucks, because of their scenario, could not afford to go long. Here's a little bit more. Frank Saravelli, once again, on the DFO Rundown podcast, a little bit more on the Pettersson deal in Vancouver.
He's the heartbeat of that team, so creative. He's one of those rare gets you out of your seat players as a fan in the NHL. And obviously the injuries last year slowed him down a bit, but still, to get him on 3 years, though, I'm really going to be curious to see what the price tag is for that 3rd year on the deal. Now, the formula had changed a bit in this new CBA that was executed in 2020 about how that works in terms of the 3rd year, and it needs to be close to the average of the deal in order for that to be the qualifying offer for the next year, since Elias Pettersson will still be an RFA at the end of those 3 years.
We don't have the actual salary breakdown yet on the Pettersson contract, to Frank's point there. Right now we know it's a 3-year deal at $7.35 million.
I was like, what is the QO there? Don't know.
Fascinated to see what that QO is going to be. But regardless, he has set himself up very, very nicely at the end of this deal. He is a center iceman, so he's going to continue to get paid. And they needed to get this guy signed. I get that. But for all those people that every time over the last 2 years, you and I, or Pinder and you, or Pinder and I would have talked about poor cap management from Jim Benning. They said, no, you don't know what you're talking about. He's building a competitive team. Yeah, no, they'll be fine. They'll be fine. Well, Jim Benning's poor cap management, or Vancouver's poor cap management, and the way they have structured their team did not allow them to sign a franchise player to a long-term deal, did not allow them.
And they might lose one. What's Brock Besser? Where's he going to go?
I don't know what. He's been on the trade block forever. And he also had to sign I don't want to say he's been on the trade block forever. He's been tied to trade talk forever.
No, they're shopping him per Pat Steinberg.
Per Pat Steinberg. And they had to sign him to a bridge deal because of their cap situation. Like, to continually, I'm not saying that kicking the can down the road is never the way to go about it, because sometimes it is. But with a player like Pettersson, to be forced into having to renegotiate a deal in 3 years where he could put up 90, 90, and 98 the next 3 years, you think he's going to be worth more than 7.35? Yeah, of course he is. And then you're talking about, in 3 years, you're probably talking about 11, something like that, where you probably could have got him a whole lot cheaper right now. But because of their cap situation, they just couldn't do that.
Just to play devil's advocate, the player can also say, no, I still want to bet on myself.
And that is very true. And, absolutely. For sure.
You know, you've always got to have the two parties willing to go to the dance to sign a 7 or 8 year deal. And we've seen that in different spots. I mean, let's take Ottawa, for example. They have all the cap space in the world, and yet Brady Tkachuk might be a bridge contract. Yeah. So sometimes that's just a low-hanging fruit that is almost too easy to criticize the team. But, yeah, in this case, I think in the future, the next couple of years, when they've got some significant RFAs up for contracts, they're going to run into some issues. And Brock Besser's at the front of that list. They've got just over $13 million in cap space next year, and Brock Besser needs to get paid. Now, he's got to put up some good numbers in order to make that a tough decision, or certainly put things in a difficult spot for the Vancouver Canucks. But no news yet on Travis Hamonic. Deadline's today.
Well, that's why I brought it up on my computer, because a text comes in and says, what happened to Hamonic? Is that the reason why they were able to sign these two?
Well,
I don't know. That's what it's a guess.
With the numbers that these two contracts are, they can fit them with Hamonic on their team. With some LTIR juggles, there's been conversations about Tyler Mott, and certainly Michael Furlan's going to be on that list. But yeah, I think if I were to bet or guess, take my best educated guess, I would suggest that they probably know at this point Travis Hamonic's leaning towards opting out of the season.
I believe Elliot Friedman dropped it yesterday that it is a vaccination thing. I think that came out somewhere. And if I'm misquoting that, I apologize. So you know what? I'm going to back right off on that, because I just seen it tied to him, but it wasn't from his account. So I want to back right off on that, actually, because I don't want to attribute something that shouldn't be attributed. But that has been the rumor. When we had Frank on earlier this week, he had said, well, I don't want, we're respecting his privacy. Yeah. We don't know. All we know at this point is that we're talking about a guy that is contemplating not playing for the team and opting out this year. And all we know at this point is that this could end up being a scenario where he doesn't play. So I'm with you. I wonder if the fact that these were able to get done, and really we only started to hear about these things starting to gain any traction after the Hamonic thing kind of came to light, and we were made aware that was the case. So, yeah, I certainly wonder whether or not that was a big reason.
Can they trade him to an American team?
Trade Hamonic?
Yeah, would make the vaccination, if that was the issue, or it is the issue. Again, we don't know, but if it is, would alleviate it a little bit.
Right.
Less games in Canada, depending where he ends up. But
yeah, I just wanted to, because I went and I checked the Twitter account. I do want to make sure that I correct myself that Elliot misspoke on 650 yesterday and did correct himself. So the unvaccinated thing remains just a rumor. So I want to make sure that I am very, very clear that I am not attributing something to one of the best in the business in Elliot Friedman, because I am not. He did not say that yesterday.
Don't worry. As soon as we go to break, Elliot's going to call you, and
I think that I think that he would appreciate me being very accurate and double and triple checking the accuracy on that. Sometimes when you're talking, you get in a group, you're like, oh yeah, oh wait, was that true, or was that backed off on or corrected? fact of the matter is, we don't know what Travis Hamonick's deal is. There's speculation about vaccination. There's speculation about, maybe he just doesn't feel comfortable. And the thing is, he wanted to be out west, and he wanted to be in
That's
Canada
what I mean.
out
It's
west.
tough
So,
to,
can you trade him to the U.S.?
Frank Cervelli brought up New Jersey. What was it, 9 times they play in Canada? So, Mackenzie Blackwood's vaccination status isn't a huge hurdle for them to jump over. And again, if being in Western Canada is so valuable to Hamonic, I don't see him accepting a trade to New Jersey. Yeah. It just doesn't seem like.
Well, and he's been a guy. He's been a guy that has been very much like. And this is not, I don't say this in a, there's no connotation to this, but he very much kind of marches to the beat of his own drum. He's like, no, I'm going to play where I want to play, and if I'm not able to play there, then I'm not going to play. And that's fully his right. And so we'll see. We'll see if this ends up getting resolved. I'm kind of with you. As the deadline looms here, I would be a little surprised at this point if we see Travis Hamonic back. Anyway, what we do know, Quinn Hughes, 6-year deal. Elias Pettersson, 3-year deal. Both signed in Vancouver. That is today's Deep Dive.
Brought to you by PlayAlberta.ca. Sports betting is now live at PlayAlberta.ca. Enjoy a $20 free bet on your first deposit. Conditions apply. Must be 18 plus. If you gamble, use your game sense.
So Hughes and Pettersson now off the board. That leaves one high-profile RFA left. There's a couple of guys. Do you know anything about the two guys in New York? Yeah, nobody cares. The Islanders guys, they're also unsigned. But the high-profile RFA still on the board. Brady Tkachuk.
For Kiefer Bellows.
I know. And I'm sure they'll sign at some point. This Brady Tkachuk scenario, doesn't it scream Matthew Tkachuk's contract from a couple of years ago, 3 years ago, when he signed his deal? I remember that vividly. I guess it was 2 years ago. I remember it vividly. You're like, when is this going to happen? When is this going to happen? Is he going to come? They're far apart. Eventually, he signed the 3x7. Brady seems like it's a very similar scenario in Ottawa. Like, I don't think he's going to miss regular season games, but I think he's going to miss a good chunk more of training camp as this contract negotiation continues.
Yeah, old man held out, older brother held out, and now certainly Brady Tkachuk, a massive absence at Ottawa Senators camp, and I don't know how this thing shakes out. It appears that one of the rumors we're hearing, one of the big holdups of this contract is the fact that Ottawa does not want to hand out a massive signing bonus or any type of bonus. I believe Thomas Chabot's deal, Pat, has no bonuses involved, and seems like that's very important to the Tkachuk camp. You look at how Matthews' deal has been structured. The first 2 years, he had a significant amount of his salary paid out in bonuses. So we'll see how this thing plays out. But, yeah, the more we get into it, the more I guess we shouldn't be surprised that Brady Tkachuk is the final domino to fall. And for a team that has that much cap space, you do wonder what the holdup is.
What do you think? Do you think he signs in time for the regular season?
Oh, yeah, I do. Brady, Matthew did.
Matthew signed with one preseason game remaining.
I think Brady will.
It's kind of what I see, too.
Next week at some point.
Is it going to be the 3 years?
I don't know. If it hasn't happened yet.
Like, I can't. Like, you said it a little earlier. Ottawa has all the cap space in the world. They have probably thrown a good chunk of that cap space at Brady, and they still haven't gotten a deal done.
So maybe Brady does want to bet on himself and go 3 years. We'll have to wait and see what it looks like. But again, you could probably sign him for 8 years. But if Ottawa's not willing to hand out bonus money or structure it the way that the Tkachuk camp wants, they're probably not going to commit to that.
That's also part of it is if you're Ottawa, like, great, principles, awesome, good for you. Do you want to sign the guy for 8 years or not? Do you want, like, it's the same thing.
Give him his bonus.
You know what? It's funny. I don't know what it is about that city, but it's an analogy that, only a certain portion of our group of fans and group of listeners will know. But, like, it's not all that different to how the Ottawa Redblacks lost all their players. They're like, nope, we have got a system. Marcel Desjardins has a system, and I will not go over this number. I will not negotiate above this number. Okay, well then Trevor Harris and William Powell and your all-star left tackle and Craig Ellingson, they're all going to leave.
Look at how the Elks are playing. I don't know if they're too upset.
I mean, they did. They're 2 for 2 against
twice.
The Elks this year. But
no, I know what you're saying though.
They let a lot of players go.
100%.
Ottawa's risking that here, and you've got a chance at maybe signing this guy long term, which is important. Change your principles a little bit.
I just went and checked. Yeah. 8 times 8 for Thomas Chabot, exactly $0.00 in bonuses.
Now, for me, if you offered me 8 times 8, I'm not going to worry too much about signing bonus. I'm going to be okay with the 8 times 8. Apparently, it's a little different. It's a little different when you're an elite hockey player, though.
Give me the cash now.
We're live at the Cat and Fiddle. This is where we are all day.
The Randy Moss straight cash, homie.
Straight cash, homie. That was after he got suspended. One of the greatest clips. Hey, Randy, how are you going to pay this? Straight cash, homie. It was one of the greatest clips ever. He did not miss a beat. Love Randy Moss. And I also love that Joe Buck has backed down and said, yeah.
And now if you hear him talk about that, he's like, that's embarrassing. Yeah.
That is a disgusting act. I love Joe Buck.
He's like, I went back and listened to it, and I cringed. He's like, I hate myself.
All he did was flip a moon to Packers fans. It was awesome.
And it wasn't even a real moon.
Yeah, he just like mimed the moon. And I like that Joe Buck's like, yeah, you know what? That was way over the top. I love Joe Buck. I used to not like him at all. For whatever reason.
I'm with you.
He has turned into, like, he's funny. He's a Howard Stern guy. Like, when he's on the Stern Show, he is outstanding.
You listen to any interview with him right now on podcasts or anywhere. Such a likable guy.
Yeah.
And I know his book's outstanding. I haven't read it yet, but I do want to. The story of him urinating in a trash can in the booth to not miss a game or not miss a play is unbelievable. Legendary.
Dude is a legend. Okay, so we are here at the Cat and Fiddle. We're on the patio
just
today.
Quickly, him and Aikman used to drink in the booth, and they were like, I probably shouldn't do that anymore.
That's awesome. Good for them.
Friday
Cat and Fiddle
the most original police
Do you have
drama
it?
in years.
Oh, I thought that you had I thought that you were going to play the Randy Moss.
Oh, no, we don't have that.
That is a disgusting act. I thought that's what Riley was playing there. I was so excited, and then you let me down. Thanks, Riley. You really
Action and adventure are alive and well on Fox this summer. While the other networks are showing reruns, you'll experience the passion, magic, and the mystery of Roar.
What are you playing?
It's called Joe Buck awkwardly reads TV promos during baseball games.
Oh, is that in the morning show folder?
It's Matt Rose's personal gem.
Oh,
okay, I like that.
Let's not dig too deep in Matt Rose's personal folder. Just want to put that out there.
Yeah, there's going to be some weird things in there. The Cat and Fiddle has a great patio, partially covered, fully heated, TV on the patio. It is roomy. They've got a great menu, a great beer selection, an outstanding draft selection, VLTs, pinball, Golden Tee, Buck Hunter. Come say hi to us. Come check out the great specials. Come enjoy the great theme nights. The Cat and Fiddle on 16th Avenue and 5th Street Northwest. We're here until 6 o'clock. Big show rolls on with Riley Pollock and headlines next. Sportsnet 960, The Fan.
Like they should. Diamonds sell by weight, carat weight, so misshapen diamonds sell for higher prices because they are heavier.
That's terrible.
Yes, it is.
So how is it that Spence always gets diamonds cut to proper proportions?
Callum, that is an excellent question, and I will get back to you with a detailed answer from Mr. Jones. By the way, have you been practicing?
Woo!
Keep working on that, Callum.
Spence Diamonds. Wow! Located across from Chinook Center.
All day long, we do the searching, the editing, the filtering. We find the good stuff, add some opinion, and call it Sportsnet 960 Headlines.
Big Show Headlines, brought to you by Hyatt Infinity, Calgary's original Infinity destination, serving you for over 28 years. Hyatt Infinity, Heritage Meadows Road on Luxury Lane.
All right, let's do it. It is a busy Friday. Lots going on in the hockey world. The week in the CFL doesn't start. It continues tonight, and a whole lot more. It's Pat Steinberg, Will Nault from the Cat and Fiddle, and now the one, the only, Riley Pollock. It's time for headlines, Riles.
Well, we kick things off with a Calgary Flames game day tonight. They host the Canucks at 7. Jacob Markstrom will start and play for the first time this preseason, but it's expected that Dustin Wolf will also get some time in net as well. Oliver Shillington gets another crack in the top 4, paired with Chris Tanev. He talked about playing smart to stay in the lineup this preseason.
I think you just, by getting more games and getting to know how you have to play your game at this level, you start knowing when to do stuff and not to do stuff. So I think by experience and by repetition, and I've been working a lot on that, try to be as consistent as I can. So just repetition and just getting your head dialed in and really focus on when to go and when not to go.
Pat, it's a roster with the most experienced actual Flames, it seems, so far this preseason tonight. What are you looking for from the Flames, and do you think Oliver Kylington could take over a top 6 spot with another good performance tonight?
Well, the first thing is, the Flames got to get a win at some point in the preseason. I don't really think you need to worry all that much about preseason results. They don't really matter all that much. But the thing is, you probably want to get the result at some point. And knowing the roster the Canucks are bringing, it's very much a worse roster than the Flames are bringing. Like, in terms of NHLers, the Flames are playing a lot of them. Thatcher Demko is likely starting for Vancouver. But in terms of defensemen, you're talking about Tyler Myers and Luke Schenn is the only regular NHL defenseman. Ole Juolevi's a first-round pick up front. Garland, JT Miller, Nils Höglander, and that's about it. So you're talking about a very AHL-heavy, bubble player-heavy roster for Vancouver. So first and foremost, you got to get a win at some point. Second of all, do I think Kylington is in the mix? Yeah, if he continues, we talked a lot about this yesterday, Will. If he continues to go about his business the way that he has, even as the rosters get more and more difficult, which they're not tonight. I'm talking specifically those final 3 games after this weekend. If he continues to be steady and continues to get the job done there, then yeah, I think he will be in the mix to be on the opening day roster and get some potential meaningful playing time as the season goes along.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a massive game for the likes of the Oliver Kylingtons of the world because, as you say, it's not your super powerful Vancouver lineup, but I think we talked about this a little bit in the first segment today. We'll continue to talk about it as the show goes on, but almost like a vote of confidence for a guy like Oliver Kylington tonight because he gets that opportunity again with a Tanev. Yep. He's shown well in the games he's played so far, and I know we've talked about it, but it certainly feels like that is a bit of a competition, and he's certainly worked his way, rightfully so, into that conversation for a potential spot on this roster opening night. So should be a fun one tonight, and the last, I think, game for some of these young players, and as we talked about too, young matchup or young lineup tomorrow in Kent. So we're starting to get down to the nitty gritty and some more competitive lineups on both sides of the ice. Not the case necessarily for Vancouver this evening, but I think we'll start to get the shape of this team and probably a last good showing or a last chance for some of these players tonight in this contest.
Pre-game at 6, puck drop at 7. You can listen to it all right here on Sportsnet 960 The Fan. It also is televised tonight on Sportsnet 1. To our west, a couple of big RFAs have been signed in Vancouver. Quinn Hughes has signed a 6-year deal worth $7.85 million per season. As well, forward Elias Pettersson has signed a 3-year, $7.35 million deal per season. Will, those were 2 of the 3 big RFAs still left unsigned. Thoughts on the 2 deals, and where do you think Brady Tkachuk's number might fall if and or when he gets signed?
I don't know what that means for Brady Tkachuk, if anything. I think that conversation, just based on how the negotiations have gone so far, is almost on its own or on an island. But I think Vancouver getting these players done is good for them. There's still certainly enough time for them to get up to speed and get prepared for opening night with officially 11 days until the start of the NHL's regular season. They're looking at anywhere from 11 days to 2 weeks for a lot of these teams to start play. So I think it was good timing for Vancouver to get those players involved and or get them signed and get them into camp this weekend. And again, like I say, Pat, I feel like because of some of the things we've heard on the Brady Tkachuk negotiation, that one to me seems like it doesn't really have any relation to anything we've seen, especially the guys in Vancouver.
Yeah, and that one seems like it's on its own island in a lot of ways. Like, it seems like it's a contract that because the Tkachuk family
kind of like
is
Tom
involved,
Hanks in Castaway. No Wilson
maybe like the Lost Island. Maybe like there could be a smoke monster. Who knows? What's going on here is that you've got you've got an agent who not only is an agent but is also an uncle, and the Tkachuks have, and Matthew said it a few weeks ago in Toronto in speaking with Elliott. He said it. We're the Tkachuks. We do things a little differently. They go about their business a certain way. They have their worth. They believe in their worth. They stick to their guns on their worth, and that's why I think this one is going to drag on a little bit. I don't think Craig Oster, the agent, looks at the deal for Pettersson or Hughes and says, oh, well, now look at that. This now means for us. They got their own formula. They got their own thing. Riles, from a Vancouver standpoint, these two needed to get done. Vancouver had such a dreadful year last year, and just think about it from Jim Benning's perspective. You know, he is one of the general managers in this league that 100% will have the most eyes on him this season. He is going to be in the hot seat all year long. He could not afford to start the season without two of his most important players, and now he's got them. Now you're talking about Pettersson back into the mix with Miller and Horvat and a very talented group of top six, and we'll see who Hughes ends up playing with on defense this year, but they needed to get it done. It would have been better if they could have gone longer term on Pettersson. Their cap situation did not allow it. There are reasons for that, and reasons self-inflicted in Vancouver. But at least they got him signed, and that was 100% the most important thing.
Switching over to the Blue Jays, they couldn't pull out a win last night to gain ground on the Red Sox, who lost to the Orioles yesterday, falling 6-2 to the Yankees. It's basically win out in their final 3 games against the Orioles, which start tonight just after 5. Steven Matz will start for Toronto. Meanwhile, the Red Sox take on the Washington Nationals in their final series of the season. Probably going to need a little help there, too. Pat, you said if the Jays lost last night, you gave them a 5% chance of making a wild card. Does the Red Sox...
Pat jinxed them.
Does the Red
100%
Sox...
if they win. So.
Yeah. Does the Red Sox also losing last night change that 5% mark for you?
Yeah, I'll stick at 5%. I'm a man of my word. Look, I think the door is still open a tad for the Blue Jays. Boston's inability to win a series against Baltimore opens the door and keeps it wide open for Seattle and, to a slightly lesser extent, Toronto. They're still only a game back, which means they still, if they take 3 of 3 from Baltimore, all they need is for Boston or Seattle to drop 2 of 3, and now all of a sudden they're in the mix again. Or sorry, to drop 1 of the 3, and all of a sudden they're in the mix again. So the Jays still have a door open. But what I think is very clear now is they're playing the worst team in the American League. They're playing the worst team in Major League Baseball. They cannot lose 1 game against Baltimore in front of 30,000 fans in their own building. By hook, by crook, whatever the case may be, they've got to take 3 of 3 from Baltimore. If they can do that, see where the chips fall. Maybe they're in a 1-game play-in for a 1-game play-in. Maybe they're in that crazy scenario that you laid out earlier this week, Will. But they got to take 3 of 3 from Baltimore. That much. We thought that anyway, but now it's even more dire. It's even more life or death.
Yeah, you win 3 of 3 this weekend. You at least give yourselves a fighting chance. Anything less, you probably don't have much of a chance, and that 5% becomes a 2 or a 1%. A massive game tonight for the Toronto Blue Jays.
We'll have to see. We do not have that one tonight. We got prior commitments with our Calgary Flames here. But again, 5 o'clock, Steven Matz on the mound for Toronto. That one from Toronto tonight.
Sportsnet West, baby.
Yes, sir. Week 9 of the CFL season continues tonight after the Tuesday game. We have 3 more still in Week 9. BC hosts the 6-1 Winnipeg Blue Bombers at 8 o'clock tonight. Tomorrow, Montreal is on the road against Hamilton at 2 o'clock before the Stamps host the Rough Riders tomorrow at 5 to wrap up the week. I will be in attendance. Super excited for that. Pat, the Stamps are 2-5, but they play the Riders well at home. It seems like Bo Levi doesn't lose a whole bunch to the Saskatchewan Rough Riders. Saskatchewan 5-2, but I have a feeling you kind of feel like they are pretenders. How do you see the game going tomorrow here in Calgary?
I don't think the Riders are pretenders. I don't. I think that there is one elite team in the CFL and then a second tier, and I think the Riders are very much in that second tier. They're a good football team, Riles. And I take a look at the body of work. The Riders are a better team than Calgary. I'm the only guy at CFL.ca, Will, to choose Calgary in the pick'em.
It's just mostly because you refuse to pick the Riders. It's
No,
not because
I've picked the Riders. It pains
So
me
you
that
actually
I've done
believe
it.
the Stampeders are going to win this game?
Here's why. First of all, I'm like, well, I'm a below five. Everybody's below 500. I've got the best record below 500. But I'm like, well, I want to start to get my record above 500 here. So
you picked the Stamps.
So I'm like, well, okay. Here's why. Coming off a bye, they are desperate. This is a must-win game if they want to have any chance to salvage the season. All of a sudden, they beat the Riders. The season becomes a little bit more salvageable. You don't have to squint as much. Bo Levi Mitchell is very much feeling the heat. He knows he hasn't been very good. I just feel like coming off a bye, getting reset, playing the Riders in your building, if there's ever a time to beat Sask, this would be the time. So that's why I chose Calgary. I think that there's a chance that they could put together a must-win effort, and a Riders team that has looked really good the last 2 weeks after those 2 losses to Winnipeg. I think that, they're flying high after these 2 wins, and that comeback win, that really good final drive from Cody Fajardo in the BC game last weekend. If there's ever a time to maybe catch the Riders here and maybe a little vulnerable, and if there's ever a time for the Stamps to put together a must-win effort, tomorrow would be that night.
You've put together a very good argument, Pat, but nothing I've seen from the Stampeders this year gives
That's
me
fair.
much confidence that it's going to turn around, by or not, especially against a team like the Riders. If this was a different team, a team that was maybe more on their level, I think I would even, have your argument would carry more water, I guess is what I'm trying to say. But right now, it's been too long this season where the Stampeder argument has been reputation-based, and what I've seen this year through 7 games, reputation is not enough to let me believe that they're in a spot to turn things around, especially against a team who's playing as good a football as the Riders are.
Yeah, I'm with Will, but I might be biased. I'm not sure.
You biased on the Riders? Never.
I was going to take the Stamps.
You won't even know what the score is in the game you're going to be seeing for, so easy.
I was
Where are
gonna
you
take
sitting
the-
tomorrow? You
I don't even know,
degenerate?
like Jay or something. I'm sitting with my girlfriend's dad, but I think he likes to have a good time, so I
You
like
guys-
to
put them back?
Yeah,
you guys going to go a beer touchdown? Is that what the rule is?
Oh, I don't know. I haven't put any barriers on the game.
beer
but,
first down?
Yeah, beer per first down seems to work really well.
Oof. Blackout.
I was going to take the Stamps plus 3.5 and Riders money line, but the line moved to minus 2.5 for the Riders. So I'm going there. I think it's going to be within a touchdown, but I think the Riders find a way to win. Boys, that's all I have for headlines today.
Big Show headlines, brought to you by Hyatt Infinity, Calgary's original Infinity destination. Own one and you'll understand. Hyatt Infinity, Heritage Meadows Road on Luxury Lane.
All right, we are well underway on the big show this afternoon. We've got a lot still to get to. Eric Francis joins us at 5. Jason Lackenfora joins us at the top of the hour, our NFL insider, to get us set for the rest of Week 4 and look back on what was another entertaining Thursday night primetime game. Apparently, if you're playing in primetime, doesn't matter who the teams are, the games are going to be good. Plus, big show locks of the week. That's all coming your way. Next, stay with us. Sportsnet 960 The Fan.
Streaming now through the Sportsnet mobile app. This is The Big Show. Sportsnet 960 The Fan, Calgary.
Breaking news from Chris Johnston, as the Toronto Stars NHL reporter has
TSN,
just reported.
Pat, give him the love. Come on. TSN's Chris Johnston.
We work for Sportsnet, and he works for the Toronto Stars, so I'm being a good employee. Chris Johnston, our former NHL insider, he has reported that no NHL players will be opting out.
Well, nobody has as of
nobody
now.
as of yet, and he doesn't believe anybody's going to.
Yeah, the deadline to do so is 11:59 Eastern tonight, so 9:59 Calgary time, a minute before midnight Eastern. But the expectation is no players will do so. So we had the segment earlier this hour about Travis Hamonic and the Vancouver Canucks. If that holds true, that means the Canucks are expecting Travis Hamonic to play for them at some point, or there could be more to that. Maybe he retires. I really don't know what to read into that, Pat, if it's a determination one way or the other. But just wanted to mention that Travis Hamonic, at this point, hasn't and will not opt out of the season.
It's actually really interesting because he could have opted out at any point, but he still hasn't. He has not reported to Canucks camp yet. So, okay, he's not going to opt out, it sounds like, because if no player is going to opt out, then that would include Hamonic. But if he's not, is he going to report? Like, does that by him not opting out, does that mean that he is just automatically going to be on a flight to Vancouver and be in camp tomorrow morning or on Sunday morning? I don't know. Like, this one is fascinating, and I don't know how to read the Hamonic situation anymore. We still don't know if it is vaccine-related, safety-related, family-related. We don't know what the deal is going on and why he hasn't reported yet, but I don't know if we can be confident that just because he's not opting out means that all of a sudden he's right back in the fold.
As we know, wording's everything, right? Retires still could mean that the Canucks get that $3 million. Doesn't have to be a deadline of tonight if he quote unquote retires. Could it be the same as the Eichel situation, Pat? Could there be a suspension and fines involved? Like I don't know what to read into this.
I don't know either
because it's not a determination.
If he doesn't report after the deadline, then they could probably move to suspend him if they really wanted to do that.
Would seem a little bit harsh.
The whole thing is bizarre.
Yeah,
they signed him to, as you said earlier this week, 2 months ago they signed him to a 2-year deal at $3 million, and it's just if I'm
What's
Jim Benning and I'm the Canucks, I'm like, exactly what has changed?
And Frank Saravelli said as much with us 2 days ago. What's changed in the 2 months since he signed?
Yeah, and it's not like last year he was on a 1-year deal at a little less money. They gave him an extra year. They gave him a bit of a raise. Mm-hmm. So what has changed between them doing that and where we are now? And maybe the Canucks don't even know at this point. It is a bizarre situation that we're in right now with Travis Hamonic. But I just wanted to get to that as we bring you back into the show. Jason Lackenfora in just minutes, our NFL insider. Chris Johnston reporting that his understanding is no players will be opting out ahead of tonight's deadline, which is 9:59 p.m. our time. Okay, time for our big show locks of the week. NFL Week 4 is underway. Pretty good game again, despite the Jaguars being a part of it. Cincinnati with a walk-off field goal to beat Jacksonville last night. Turned out to be a pretty good game yesterday. I was actually quite impressed with how entertaining that football game was. I was a little worried about my Bengals
at
in
halftime.
Fantasy
It did not look good.
Holy, did that look bad. And the Bengals are the better team. They woke up. They eventually won. They'll move to 3-1. Like, Joe Mixon was sitting at 0 points in fantasy late in the second quarter. You're like, what is going on here? Figured it out. Joe Mixon had a good game. Tyler Boyd had a decent game. Joe Burrow had a pretty large game. Trevor Lawrence looked okay on the other side. James Robinson was huge. I thought that was Lawrence's best game yet.
Threw for like
not
200
great,
yards and nothing.
But no interceptions.
Yeah, good for him.
Let's give him some credit where credit's due.
I'm mad
no
because
interceptions.
I'm ornery because I spent $6 on the Bengals defense
and
and
they
waivers.
Did nothing for you.
Give me 1 point.
You in our league you did?
Yeah.
I put $2 on them.
And I think I outbid Boom by $1. Like Boom put $5.
Yeah.
I was like,
I put 2 on them and didn't win, and glad I didn't. I think I ended up getting somebody else's pretty decent. I think I got Tennessee's defense or something like that.
Yeah, they're playing the Jets, Pat.
No, I didn't get him in that league. I got him in another league. Tennessee was already taken in our league. Okay, big show locks of the week. Riley is going to be an honorary part of this week, so we will log your pick, Riles. But you're going to go last.
It's like a freebie, Riles. You can just do
whatever you want.
Take the biggest spread.
And you can... There's no consequences if you get it wrong. Logo goes first. Logan Gordon is not with us right now. He is the only
right here,
perfect. Oh, hey, Logo.
I picked the Tampa Bay Buccaneers -7.
It's a really bad Logan Gordon impression, but he's 3-0. He goes first, and that is Logo's pick. He's going to take Tampa -7 against New England on Sunday night. So Logo's lock of the week, trying to stay perfect in Week 4. Tampa -7.
I take Tampa.
Why do you sound like another person that we just saw recently? I'm going to go Baltimore -1 on the road in Denver. I've got the Ravens -1. I still don't buy the Broncos. I know that they're off to a nice start. That schedule is very meh. I'm not a big-time believer in Denver right now. Baltimore, I think, is
like a
up and down. It is very much a pick'em, and that's why I was like, well, geez, Ravens on the road. They'd be favored by what, 2 if this is a neutral site game. I think Baltimore's the better team. My lack of faith in the Broncos has me going the Ravens as well. I'll take Baltimore, a road favorite, albeit by 1 point in Denver.
I've debated this long and hard between 2 different games, and I'm going to go with my gut because they've lost 2 in September for the first time in a long, long time. Taking the Kansas City Chiefs on the road in Philadelphia, -6.5. I think Andy Reid and the Chiefs will be fired up, trying to get back in the win column, trying to get back to 500. When's the last time we said that with the Chiefs?
It's a good pick.
Take the Chiefs -6.5.
Chiefs -6.5. Bucks -7 and Baltimore -1 are our picks this week. Okay, your lock, Riles?
Yeah, Riles, go ahead.
What do you got?
It pains me to do this, but I'm going to take the Washington football team -1.5 against the Falcons. The Falcons aren't beating Washington.
Okay. Choosing against your team. Coming off this big win over the Giants last week. You're choosing against your team, Riley.
Heineke is going to go up and down the field on the Falcons' D, and the Falcons are going to score 17 points again and lose.
You sicken me, Riles.
When you were gone, we discovered that the last Atlanta jersey that Riles owns is
Michael Turner.
Really?
Yeah.
You should see Pat's face.
Some fan you are. I can talk. The last Bucks jersey
Cadillac?
No, I think the last one I had.
You have a Cadillac, don't you?
I do have a Cadillac. Cadillac. So I've John Lynch, Rondé Barber, Cadillac Williams, and then when I thought that I was buying, when I thought I was buying real jerseys.
Oh no!
I thought my buddy was I just thought my buddy had this greatest hookup ever. Yeah, Ryan Ballantyne. I thought he had this greatest hookup ever. Oh yeah, just these factory defect jerseys. Yeah, for sure. They're not knockoffs at all. You get them, you're like, that color's just a little off. Like you see the knockoff Flames jerseys, you're like, it's red, not orange. It's not burgundy. Get the colors right. So I've got a knockoff Josh Freeman, and then I legitimately threw out, because I did not know he was a horrible person when I bought the jersey. I threw out my Kellen Winslow jersey because that man is a reprehensible human. That one actually went in the garbage. Nope.
That's a very good call by you. I
no
think
time
you
for
could have donated it. I think maybe there's a kid that could have probably used that, but.
If I would have done that, I would have ripped the lettering and the numbers.
Well, you could have done that.
Could have done that. Yep, good point. We are live from the Cat and Fiddle today. That's where
By the way,
are today.
The other game I debated was the LA Rams -4.
Yeah, that's a good pick
against
too.
Cardinals.
I think that's a good game.
If it was 2.5,
I think the Rams win by 6. So, yeah, I'd take him -4. I'd go down that road. Cat and Fiddle is where we are. Great spot for NFL Sunday. 16 big screen TVs, sound, outstanding draft menu, great pub-style menu. They got the great brunch menu on weekends as well. Outstanding patio, heated, partially covered with a TV out here as well. 16th Avenue, 5th Street, Northwest. If you want to win $100 here at the Cat and Fiddle, text the word Fiddle in all capital letters and your first and last name. If you do that, you could win $100 just by texting in Fiddle in all capital letters.
Here's
your
the
first
thing,
and
though.
last name.
Put your name on it. There's a text here that I'm staring at just says Fiddle.
If there's no name on it, you can't be entered into the draw. If there is, you could win $100. Riley's back at the Iconic Studio, powered by Iconic Electric and Controls. Burner Management, it's Iconic. Follow them on Twitter at IconicEC.
NFL is now in to week number 4. We'll get the latest on the storylines of Sunday and some more betting tips. Our NFL insider, Jason Lackenfora, in moments. Big Show continues. Sportsnet 960 The Fan.
You're locked on to the Big Show. Calgary Sports Talk in the afternoon. Okay, smart speaker, play Sportsnet 960.
35-yard attempt. Snap. Placement. The approach. Sweeps the leg. The kick is good. Time is run out. And the Bengals win it to improve to 3-1. The rookie kicker delivers. 24-21. Cincinnati knocks off Jacksonville.
Down by 14 at the half. The Bengals went 3 for 3 in their first 3 possessions in the second half to grab their first lead of the game. Jacksonville came back to tie it. And then, as you just heard there, a game-winning field goal from the Cincinnati Bengals. They improved to 2-1 on the season. 0-3. 0-4 go the Jacksonville Jaguars. So not a good start to the year for Jacksonville. Urban Meyer calling it a heartbreaking finish. As I say, they're up by 14 to begin that second half. Let's kick things off for some more Week 4 conversation with our NFL Insider.
Sportsnet 960 NFL Insider Jason Lockenfora. Brought to you by McLeod Trail Midas. Skip the dealer and get your car winter ready with Midas. Need your snow tires put on? Winter tune-up? Book your full service appointment today at McLeodTrailMidas.com.
Jay, as always, appreciate it. Happy Friday, my friend. And let's kick things off just with that contest last night. I know on paper, not a pretty matchup, but again, another primetime game that had some entertainment. The NFL has not messed with many of these so far this year.
No, look, was it the sharpest game, the crispest game? No. But it was compelling, right? It was nip and tuck. It was always in doubt. But the biggest lead was 14-0. You had lead changes late. And a lot of things that you look for in what I'll call a compelling football game. And look, I know there's some people out there saying, well, the Bengals barely won. Bengals are 3-1. I mean, the Bengals are 3-1. They look like a professional operation. They've kept the quarterback clean enough. They're balanced, which they weren't last year. They've reestablished Joe Mixon. The defense is markedly better than a year ago. So Monday morning, there's a pretty good chance that everybody's going to wake up. And the Bengals, well, they're definitely going to be no worse than tied for first in the division, and they may be standing alone at first in the division. That's not bad territory for them going into Week 5 on extended rest. And as for Jacksonville, look, it's going to be a process with Urban Meyer. I think the question is, how long is he willing to trust the process? And at some point, does he just bail?
I know last night no turnovers for him, but, he's not alone. It's been a struggle all around the league, Jay, for rookie quarterbacks, and Trevor Lawrence is right in there in that same category.
Yeah. No, look, it takes a village, and the coach doesn't know what he's doing yet, and it's a weird staff. It's not a great offensive line. They can run block. They can't really pass protect. Scheme-wise, they're still figuring things out. It's not a good defense. There's a lot going on there, and he's never struggled, and Urban Meyer's never struggled. I mean, they've never had to face this kind of adversity. They haven't gone into many games, haven't even worried about the 2-minute drill in special situations because they've done nothing but really win. Certainly not lose this consistently. So I think there's a mental component to it. There's a physical component to it. And he's going to be fine, but is he going to take the league by storm as a rookie like RG3 did or like Kyler Murray did or like Lamar Jackson did or like Andrew Luck did or like Burrow or Herbert did last year? No, he's not.
He's Jason Lockenfora, NFL Insider, every single Friday here on the Big Show, Sportsnet 960 The Fan. Week 4 in the NFL kicked off last night with a 24-21 victory for the Cincinnati Bengals. We focus on Sunday, some of the biggest storylines emerging. I know they're in your best bets, so maybe we'll start there. And after 2 losses in September, rare territory, we're expecting a pretty good bounce back from the Chiefs on Sunday, Jay?
I think so. I mean, look, they haven't played terribly. The defense has issues. That defense has had issues in the past. The turnovers are not going their way, and I think that's certainly something that's at least a little bit correctable. And I think they're playing a team here this week that just is a little bit overmatched. You talk about an Andy Reid versus Nick Sirianni from a coaching standpoint and a schematic standpoint and a preparation standpoint, and Hurts and Mahomes, and who's going to be able to really, manipulate the scoreboard. The Eagles can run the ball, and they may keep it close by running the ball. I just don't think they're going to be able to keep it close enough. This is a big spot for the Chiefs. Any thoughts they might have had coming into the year that it's going to be a cakewalk or anything like that are obviously already out the window. I I just think that this is, that the preseason point of Chiefs football is over. And I guess saying all that, they're like 5 minutes away from being 3-0. So it's just they played a really tough schedule. They've played really tough teams in tough situations, and I think they now have a homecoming game.
On that Philly team, 1-2 on the year. That win obviously came against the lowly Falcons in Week 1. Hasn't been the same in Weeks 2 and 3, and as we just talked about, probably in tough for a victory here in Week 4. A lot of noise around this team, around Jalen Hurts. I know there was some rumors this week about Deshaun Watson and Howie Roseman giving the green light to pursue a trade. Just, I guess, your feel on that Eagles camp and what they see or what they don't see in Jalen Hurts, and what's your gut tell you on these Deshaun Watson rumors?
Well, I think, look, the Deshaun Watson thing isn't so much about Jalen Hurts. It's because he's Deshaun Watson. He's an all-pro quarterback. He's an established franchise guy, and he's call certainty. Somebody's already done the hard work for you, the heavy lifting. They've already paid the signing bonus. Now, obviously, there's mitigating circumstances with his legal and civil and potentially league issues in terms of discipline, and that is a major formidable factor. And I continue to be told that the Eagles are not actively pursuing him right now, and they're not really in on this thing, although they've certainly monitored it. And I'm still not convinced that anybody's actually close to getting something done, although the closer we get to the trade deadline, November 2nd, the more the Texans have to establish what exactly their stance is going to be and what it's going to take to pry this guy away, which certainly may decrease from the summer. But Hurts has played 8 games. I just think we don't know that much about it. We don't know that much about him. We don't know that much about Nick Sirianni. I think this kid's been thrown into 2 difficult situations, one with the sort of demise of Carson Wentz and one with this new coaching staff coming in, who are trying to figure things out for themselves as well. But in the meantime, right now, does it look like a smooth operation? No, it doesn't. And I think some of that is, as polished as this kid is and as impressive as he is, personally, I think some of this has to start affecting you a little bit in terms of how you're playing.
Sticking in that early afternoon window, Carolina Panthers at 3-0. They're going to get a bit of a tougher test than what they've had so far on their schedule this weekend in Dallas. Certainly that, multiplies itself without a Christian McCaffrey. Your feel on the Panthers at 3-0 on the road without CMC against the Dallas Cowboys?
Well, I kind of feel like Carolina and Denver are both good teams, solid teams. I thought they'd be wild card contenders. You look at their record and you might say, well, maybe they're going to be world beaters. Well, we're going to find a lot more out about them these next couple of weeks. But both those teams, I buy their defense wholeheartedly. Carolina has some good stuff going on there. No Christian McCaffrey for a few weeks. I think that's going to be tough. It's going to make the margins a little slimmer offensively. I also don't buy Dallas's defense completely either, and I think they've some people are getting a little too high on their horse about how good the Cowboys maybe are. But Dallas's offense clearly can beat you in a bunch of different ways. And they're pretty healthy up front, which is where everything starts. They've got both running backs going now. Dak's playing winning football. So I think, Dallas might be the team that wins this game, but I think the Panthers are going to be a team that sticks around in this thing and has something to say about one of those wild card spots.
Chicago and Detroit, not a sexy game on paper, Jay, but what do you make, if anything, you've heard in terms of the conversations around Matt Nagy, around what was called by many a horrendous game plan in Justin Fields' first start, where they had 5-man protection most of that afternoon in Cleveland, and Detroit at 0-3, they've played some pretty good football, and they fight hard. Your feel on both those two teams?
Yeah, I feel like Detroit at least has an identity. It hasn't led to a lot of results to this point, but they kind of fight above their punch above their weight, their weight class, and fight hard for this guy and put themselves in positions to be a factor at the end of the game. Nagy and that game plan and not moving that kid around and booting him out. I mean, it almost looked they threw Andy Dalton's game plan at that kid and said, you're going to live and die with this offensive line. And he got the snot kicked out of him. I mean, even though they're handling the quarterback situation now, both are a game time decision, yada, yada, yada. They haven't gotten much right there for a while. They might have enough to still win this game because the defense on its day can still be pretty solid. But I don't think, obviously, either of these teams are going to be playoff factors. I think the difference is, the Lions have kind of reached a point where they at least know who they want to try to get better with by giving these guys six-year deals. The Bears haven't gone through that whole tear it down to rebuild it up again thing yet, but it's coming.
Just a few more with Jason Lockenfor, our NFL insider every Friday here on the Big Show, Sportsnet 960 The Fan. I know you were bullish coming into the year after a kind of a stubbing of the toe in Week 1 against the Steelers. The Buffalo Bills have figured things out, and the schedule sets up nicely here in Week 4. 17-point favorites. That's a lot of points, but they're at home to the Houston Texans on Sunday. Yeah, look, they looked the part against a Washington team that can't get out of its own way right now. That was a big bounce-back win. We saw that offense look the way we've seen it look in the past. The quarterback looked a lot more confident and able to spread the ball around almost at will. So I think the Bills are still a work in progress. But, yeah, this should be a nice spot for them, no doubt about it. Houston doesn't have a lot of talent. They are kind of like the Lions a little bit in that they play harder than you think they might, and they don't mail it in easily. But through the course of 4 quarters, they're going to have a difficult time hanging around with most competent football teams, and Buffalo certainly qualifies as such. So that is a big number for professional football and early in the year, no doubt about it. But I wouldn't be stunned if the Bills covered it. The afternoon window on your side of the continent, the early afternoon window for us here in Calgary, sees some pretty good matchups. Let's start in the NFC West, LA Rams and Arizona Cardinals. Do you have the Cardinals, Jay, in the same camp as the Broncos and the Panthers as a good team, but maybe not a great team? What have you seen from the Cardinals in 3 wins so far this year? I think they're able to hit some really high notes and flash in a way that not every team can, and a lot of that has to do with their quarterback and how special he can be. But I don't know that this defense is the real deal. I have some questions about Cliff Kingsbury's offense when Kyler Murray isn't just sort of improvising or making a play. They've been a little bit banged up, and I'm just still not sold. But especially in that division where there's so many good teams and some serious challenges, that they're going to be able to prevail at the end of the day. I could be wrong, but I think this is a tough spot for them. Kyler Murray's had his hands full with the Rams thus far in his career. Maybe it's a letdown for the Rams, but I don't think so in division. Matt Stafford is playing exceptional football. Cooper Kupp's pretty much unstoppable right now, and I think the Rams are going to keep this little hot streak going. Denver at home with the Baltimore Ravens. I know Baltimore's pretty beat up, but what do you see playing out in that contest at Mile High? I think it's a tough spot for the Ravens. I think Von Miller's going to be a real handful for them. I think the Ravens are they've had a difficult time on the road running the ball the way they're used to, and they're still kind of hunting and pecking to figure out what works for them this year, and they've been reluctant to run the read option stuff as much with Lamar, who missed most of the practice this week with a back injury. So I think that could be a mitigating circumstance. Denver's secondary is really good, and I don't think you're going to be able to throw the ball on them. And even if you are dropping back a bunch, that means Von Miller's probably undressing Alejandro Villanueva. So I could see Denver winning a relatively ugly football game here. Baltimore's defense as well. Can they get a pass rush without bringing 5, 6, 7 guys to try to do so? Teddy Bridgewater's really steady, really solid. Doesn't tend to turn the ball over. Denver's got a couple of running backs who can beat you out in space, catching short passes. And then Baltimore's linebackers are really in a bad way right now in terms of coverage. And Mile High, traditionally, this time of year has been a fortress for the Broncos when fans are in the stands. I don't think you come out of this game thinking Denver is a world beater. And I don't think the Ravens will have to worry that, all is lost. But I do think this is a tough spot for them. And I kind of lean to the Broncos. Two more for you. We'll finish with the sexiest storyline of the week, which is happening Sunday night in Foxborough. But Monday night in L.A., are you buying the Raiders, Jay, at 3-0?
I'm buying them. It doesn't mean they're going to win this game because the Chargers are a really good football team as well. But the Raiders are much more balanced, and that's even without Josh Jacobs barely playing to this point. I think the defense is much improved. They're kind of like the Bengals a little bit, but further along in their development. But I feel like both defenses taking a major step up. Maybe not elite, but good enough. The Raiders do have a pass rush now with Ngakoue and Crosby. And Derek Carr's playing phenomenal football and seems very comfortable and at ease with John Gruden, which wasn't always the case. They've had, Renfro's a thing. This Edwards has become a thing. Ruggs is a thing. Waller's a thing. But saying all that, the Chargers are loaded as well and have no shortage of blue chip players. I do think the Raiders are going to take that stadium over, though. I think it's going to feel like a Las Vegas home game for whatever that's worth. And this is kind of a toss-up game to me, but I like both these teams so far.
And then finally, yes, Sunday night in New England, the Patriots at home to Tom Brady and the Buccaneers. Lots has been made this week, Jay, about the Belichick and Brady split, where that relationship is. We know about the history. I guess just thoughts and a very broad opening for you, as Sunday is going to be a pretty big game and a pretty big night for the NFL.
Yeah, I think it's a good spot for Tom Brady. He's got the better football team around him. He's got the more confident football team around him. He doesn't have Bill Belichick, I guess, but he's got really good coaches, better supporting cast. Maybe this is the week the Patriots really uncork a pass rush. I haven't seen a ton of that to this point. Maybe Mac Judon sparks it. Mac Jones is limited. I think this is going to be a little different for Mac Jones. I know he's played in front of 100,000 people in national title games and all that, but I think this is going to be a little bit different where most people are there to see the other quarterback instead of you, and it's your home stadium. He has not been able to get the ball to his supporting cast and get them involved nearly the way I think the Patriots would ideally like. And the Patriots' offensive line looks like a problem to me. And they're not running the ball as well as they'd like either. And at some point, that Bucs defense is going to start getting off again. And that front four is going to make a little noise. And I think it probably starts Sunday night. I just think Tom Brady's in a much better spot than Belichick. He's with a better operation than Belichick. And I think he's not going to take his foot off the gas pedal in this game.
I know we haven't really talked to you about this, but as we say goodbye on this Friday, I know that for those that follow you on Twitter, Jay, they see that you're now a big Monday to Friday radio host, which again is not necessarily new to you. But how is life for Jason Lockenfora with the full-time radio gig? I know you were out and watching some, getting ready for Maryland football tonight. It's a different world for you these days, Jay.
It is. It's good. It's good to be busy, and I'm definitely busy. But no, I really enjoy it. I love doing this and being able to have that forum for 4 hours a day to really kind of it's not like TV where you got to get in and get out. You can really have multi-layered discussions that evolve and change over time, and try to provide people with some insight and guests and opportunities to discuss things that maybe not everybody can do. So no, it's been awesome. And yeah, we broadcast the Maryland games. I'm out here for this game against Iowa. I was fifth ranked in the country, and Maryland's off to a 4-0 start. Tua Tagovailoa is Maryland's quarterback. The offense looks pretty good. So, yeah, I'm excited to stick around here and check this game out and see if the Terps can get themselves nationally ranked again.
Enjoy it, my friend. Appreciate the conversation.
Thanks, brother. Have a great weekend.
Yeah, you too, man. Take care.
Look forward to it, Will. Thanks, buddy.
Sportsnet 960 NFL insider Jason Lockenfora. Brought to you by McLeod Trail Midas. Skip the dealer and get your car winter ready with Midas. Need your snow tires put on? Winter tune-up? Book your full service appointment today at McLeodTrailMidas.com.
That is one busy man, and we appreciate his time as always. Jason Lockenfora with the latest on the NFL. Week 4 Sunday edition. There's a ton of juicy storylines. We talked about most of them there in that conversation. Of course, all eyes Sunday night in New England as the Patriots welcome Tom Brady and the Buccaneers. That will be a ratings bonanza on NBC. We'll take a break. When we come back, we'll shift gears. Calgary Flames at home tonight to the Vancouver Canucks as the preseason continues. We're starting to get a pretty good idea as to what this forward group looks like. We'll break that down. Plus, there's one player making a name for himself, and it's not a name that you might be familiar with. We'll talk about all that and more. Daily Flames Roundtable with Derek Wills next. We continue. Big Show is live from the Cat and Fiddle today on Sportsnet 960 The Fan.
Daily Calgary Flames Roundtable, brought to you by Mercedes-Benz Country Hills. View Mercedes-Benz certified pre-owned inventory inside the showroom today, just minutes from the Calgary airport.
Preseason game number 4 of the exhibition schedule for the Calgary Flames tonight goes at 7 o'clock. Our Flames warm-up program coming your way in about 90 minutes right here on Sportsnet 960 The Fan. Pat Steinberg, Will Nault along with you from the Cat and Fiddle. And now we welcome in Derek Wills, the radio voice of the Calgary Flames, to complete our daily Calgary Flames roundtable. Gentlemen, when you take a look at the way things are being structured for this game, another fairly veteran-heavy lineup. When you look at how the forward lines have been put together in the preseason and, more importantly, in practices, are we starting to get a pretty good idea of how Daryl Sutter wants things to look and how he's likely going to structure things for night 1 on October 16th?
I mean, I think so, as long as everybody's healthy. And right now, Tyler Pitlick isn't healthy, so hopefully they'll have him back, if not for the start of the regular season, then sometime soon. I mean, better yet, he's back at some point in time next week, and the Flames will wrap up their 8-game preseason schedule. But, you know, the 4 lines that I saw to start training camp, I think the coaches had a lot of time to think about who they wanted to play with who and, you know, how those lines would work and, you know, how they would give the team balance this season. And, you know, I think in a perfect world, nothing's probably changed for them, and that those are the 4 lines that they'd like to start the season with. So you've got Elias Lindholm between Matthew Tkachuk and who's on the right side of that line? Blake Coleman. And then Sean Monahan between Johnny Gaudreau and Andrew Mangiapane. Michael Backlund between Dylan Dubé and Tyler Pitlick. And then Brad Richardson. Now, that might be one that we can talk about, but, you know, he started training camp on a line between Milan Lucic and Trevor Lewis. But, you know, if there's one of the 12 forward spots up for grabs, again, if everybody's healthy, I think it might be that 4th-line center spot. I still think they start the season with the veteran Richardson there, but, you know, the fact that Glenn Gaudin has played in 3 preseason games and certainly hasn't looked out of place, and I would think that he's probably got the best chance to steal the job. But and I wouldn't be surprised to see them start with Richardson and then see how it goes. And if they want to make a change, then I think Gaudin's a guy who's proven that he can play at this level.
Yeah, I wonder, you know, we've talked about this, Pat. What do you see as that spot being? If it is a bit of a, maybe true rotation is the wrong way to phrase it, but if it is a rotation where it's, you know, 4 or 5 games at a time for either side, then yeah, I see that being a very realistic spot for Glenn Gaudin. But if it's a situation where, you know, the player's going to sit for 10 to 12 games, then I don't really know if Glenn Gaudin's a spot or that's a spot for Glenn Gaudin. Maybe it's more of a Brett Ritchie type role as that 13 forward. Do they carry 13? Do they carry 14? I think that's also part of the conversation, and we'll have to see how this thing plays out as it goes along. But yeah, it's pretty clear to this point so far in training camp and in the preseason that Daryl Sutter knows what he wants in that forward group, and really on the entire roster. We talked about Shillington yesterday. That's a battle on the back end that I think everybody's watching. Where does he fit amongst this defense group? And, you know, Glenn Gaudin up front, outside of that, I'm not sure we're seeing a ton of competition for spots because Daryl Sutter knows exactly what he wants. And with the forward lines tonight, Richardson being a clear placeholder for a guy like Sean Monahan come opening night, yeah, I think it's pretty clear what we're going to see here on October 16th.
Yeah, I mean, I take a look at those forward trios, and I say to myself, what we saw on day 1 of training camp was not an accident. And it's funny, Derek, because sometimes you get training camps that, you know, you try different things out. You try this group for a little bit, and then you try that group for a little bit, and you maybe go with 2 or 3 different combinations, and then you settle them for the final 3 or 4 days of practice before you get to the start of the regular season. Well, this year, it felt like right from day 1, when Daryl Sutter put those lines together, and those lines carried over into day 2, into day 3 of camp, and then you saw how things mixed and matched come the preseason. You could start to see where certain things were being plugged and played. It just felt like that was by design right from the get-go. The Daryl Sutter wanted those 4 forward lines to play together at all times, and he knew that there was going to have to be some mixing and matching come preseason games. But yeah, I even take a look at tonight, with Richardson in between Gaudreau and Mangiapane. Well, that's Monahan's spot. And Backlund is playing with Dubé, and you're like, okay, well, that's where Backlund has been playing most of practice. And we know Pitlick's hurts, so they have Richie on the right side there. It feels like this has been the plan right from the get-go, and really has not been deviated from. If we don't see the 4 lines to start the season that we saw to start training camp, minus injuries, to your point, I'd be pretty surprised at this point.
Yeah, I would as well. And listen, if Tyler Pitlick's not ready to start the season, I think it's really easy to slide Brett Ritchie into that spot and to just leave your 4th line with either Brad Richardson or Glenn Godden between Milan Lucic and Trevor Lewis. I think Brett Ritchie can certainly play the right side of the 3rd line while Tyler Pitlick is out. So for me, the forward group is less interesting than the defense, and Will kind of touched on it, but they've got 3 guys that are written in stone. So you've got Chris Tanev, Noah Hannafin, and Rasmus Andersson. I think the other 3 spots, they might not be up for grabs, guys, but I'm not sure who's going to play with who, because that's the one thing that continues to change throughout training camp in the preseason, who's paired together and who's in and who's out. So I have a lot more questions about who's going to be playing on defense and who the pairings are going to be come October 16th than I do who's going to be playing at forward and on those 4 lines.
Daily Calgary Flames Roundtable with Derek Wills, Will Nault, and my name is Pat Steinberg. We're going to see Walker Duehr in another preseason game this evening, and he was definitely one of the guys that jumped off the page and had himself a nice night Wednesday in that 4-3 shootout loss to Seattle. Guys, do the Flames have something here? Do they have a little found money in Walker Duehr from what we've seen to this point?
Maybe. I mean, they signed him as an undrafted college free agent, so they didn't have to spend a draft pick on him, if I'm not mistaken. And he's a guy who has been impressive in rookie games and in a couple of preseason games. Do they have something? Quite frankly, I think it's way too early to tell. Again, you have to take what you see in the preseason, especially early in the preseason when you've got a mixed lineups. Some of them resemble NHL lineups to some extent. The one we're going to see tomorrow night probably won't. I think we're going to touch on that next. You see kind of a combination of NHL players, AHL players, and junior players at this point in time in the preseason. So until you see guys compete against full-blown NHL teams, I think it's really difficult to get a good read on them. But I'll say this about Walker Duehr. He's got good size. I think he skates really well for a big man. And he plays the game with pace and plays the game with edge and appears to have a pretty good shot as well. So, I think for a guy who they got basically for nothing, they have someone who has played well enough to get his 3rd preseason game out of Florida to start it off.
Yeah, I think, to Derek's point, it is early. Found money is probably a good way of putting it because he was an undrafted college free agent. I think his ceiling is probably a depth guy at the NHL level, but I think he's shown enough, Pat, where you could probably convince yourself that at some point he's going to play NHL games. I couldn't tell you if it's going to be 5, 6 years, 7 years, 1 year, 2 years, but yeah, I think he's shown you enough where this is a guy who clearly is an NHL-type talent, and I think he will play games in the NHL, just a matter of how much. And again, his ceiling is probably a depth guy in the NHL, but he's got some speed, he's got some size, and I think those are 2 things that franchises value across the league, and I do think they have a little something in Walker Duehr.
It reminds me, guys, and it's early, and I understand that, but knowing how highly Daryl Sutter has spoken about the player and knowing what I've seen in the games that he's played and knowing how highly the organization thought of him when they signed him at the end of his college season, it's got a little Josh Juris, Garnet Hathaway to it for me. And in both cases, that was found money for the Calgary Flames. effective players in their roles who could step in and play in bottom 6 NHL positions, and you didn't have to use a draft pick on them. Both Hathaway and Juris were signings out of development camp. That's a little bit different because they haven't had development camp for a couple of years, but the same type of thing. And watching him in the preseason, to Will's point, he's not going to be a guy that's going to push for top 6 NHL minutes at any time, but with his speed, with his size, he plays with an edge. He's not afraid to be physical out there. Man, if he continues this preseason, carries it into the Stockton season, because he's going to go to Stockton to start the year, Derek. But if he uses this preseason as a nice kind of jolt or kick in the pants or whatever term you want to use, continues to play well in Stockton with the Heat, and all of a sudden the Flames need somebody to step in and play fourth-line wing minutes at some point in December or something like that, I could absolutely see this guy being on the radar to get the recall. That's pretty impressive, knowing you didn't draft the guy, didn't spend a draft pick on him. That's a pretty impressive or pretty nice little addition to have in your organization. So I do think they've got something here, and I'm curious to see how he plays tonight because he looked really good on Wednesday.
Yeah, and I think the fact that he's getting a third game says a lot about how he's looked so far, because didn't Daryl Sutter say something, I think it was either late last week or early this week, when talking about the first couple of preseason games, that we had probably seen the last of some guys, and that's just because they didn't do enough to get another game. Walker Duehr clearly has done enough to get not 1, not 2, but 3 games, and maybe he gets a 4th game in Kent, Washington tomorrow. But you're right. I think found money is a really good way to put it, Pat, because when you think about the NHL draft, guys that are taken in the back half of the draft, I mean, those aren't players that you really expect to be NHLers. Maybe they get some NHL games, but they're not, career NHLers. If you draft a guy in the 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th round and he ends up being a full-time NHLer, I think that in a way is found money. So, if you can find a guy as a college free agent and sign him, and he turns into an NHLer, then that's really found money. So far so good for Walker Duehr. Again, you take what you see early in the preseason with a giant grain of salt, but all he can do is keep impressing us, and he's certainly done that to this point.
Final topic on our Daily Flames Roundtable with Derek Wills, Will Nault, and Pat Steinberg. What type of lineup are we expecting tomorrow night when the Flames venture to the United States for the first time in a long time? They're off to Kent, Washington tomorrow.
I'm trying to figure out how I can answer that question respectfully. I don't think we're going to see a lot of veterans make the road trip. I'll put it that way. I think what tomorrow night's game will be is an opportunity for guys who aren't quite ready to get one last game in, and then they'll probably be heading back to the AHL or back to juniors. So, I don't think we're going to see a veteran-laden lineup for the Flames against the Kraken in Kent, Washington tomorrow night, but, it's a golden opportunity for guys who, aren't quite ready to play in the NHL and who aren't going to be amongst the 30 or so bodies that are with the team next week when they play their final 3 preseason games on the road in Edmonton on Monday, and then on the road in Winnipeg on Wednesday, and then home against the Jets on Friday. I think however many guys are left next week, those are the guys who are really close, and I think most of the guys that we'll see tomorrow against the Kraken probably won't be included in that group. But you do have to have some veteran players in your preseason lineup, so we'll see a handful of them. But I wouldn't expect to see half a team of veterans, that's for sure.
No, you're going to see them obviously send the minimum, the ones they need to meet the requirements of NHL preseason action. I would think that you're probably seeing a combination of maybe a Wolf Vladar in goal. You're not going to see a whole heck of a lot. As I said to you earlier in the program, Pat, I think it's going to be a lot of players that will play this game. And then whether it's Sunday or Monday, a significant, if not all of them, chunk will be sent down to Stockton's camp. And again, like I say, by the time we're into next week, you're going to get a pretty good idea as to what this team looks like. Those final preseason games, you'll get a look at Monahan and Hanifin. Those games will have pretty close outside of the competitions we've talked about earlier in this hit, the Shillingtons and the Goddens. You're going to get those guys mixed into those preseason games, I think, but those ones will be pretty much the team. And I would expect that Saturday's game in Kent is a lot of a final kind of send-off type game for a lot of these players.
A few guys that I'd like to see potentially. I don't like. We haven't seen Emilio Pettersson yet play. I'd like to see him get an opportunity. I always enjoy watching him. He played 2 of the rookie games against Edmonton.
You just want to say Emilio.
Emilio, but I'd like to see Emilio Pettersson get a game in. So that's a possibility. He's yet to suit up in the preseason. And we were talking a little bit about this earlier. I don't know if he's going to get in or not, but he's still on the roster. I'd be really curious to see Ryan Francis get into an NHL preseason game and see how he plays against a roster that'll probably be made up of more veteran players on the Kraken than what we're talking about for the Flames and what they're going to bring. Because, you're probably talking about Valimaki and Stone and maybe Dubé and or maybe not even Dubé because he's playing tonight, but maybe Lewis and Lucic or something like that. Like you're talking about as few veterans as they can take. So there's going to be spots for young players, and Pelche and Ruzicka and Godin and all those names are going to be there. But those are the 2 guys I'd be really interested in seeing. Ryan Francis and Emilio Pettersson. Neither have played in the preseason. Tomorrow is really the only chance that they're going to get in. Be really neat to see how they play if indeed that happens.
Yeah, and just kind of reading between the lines, fellas, I suspect that that's the reason those 2 guys are still with the team, is because they will get that game tomorrow. Yeah. And
nice.
The other guy who I'd like to see tomorrow is Dan Vladar, because to your point, Pat, I think the Kraken are probably going to dress a pretty strong lineup for that off-site game in Kent. And I think the more reps Dan Vladar can get against NHL teams or close to NHL teams, the more ready he's going to be this team's backup. I'm more convinced now than I ever was that he's going to be the backup to Jacob Markstrom to start the season because of what Darryl Sutter said in his media availability today. So I think getting those reps in and getting as much experience as you can. Remember, he's only got 5 career NHL games under his belt. So the more games he can get to get up to speed before the puck drops for real October 16th, I think the better off Dan Vladar is going to be in that game against the Kraken tomorrow. I think would be a good chance for him if they do travel him to get another game in and get that added experience.
All right, Mr. Wills, we'll see you in about half an hour's time back at the Dome. Be well. We'll talk to you then.
All right, guys. See you soon.
Daily Calgary Flames Roundtable, brought to you by Mercedes-Benz Country Hills. View Mercedes-Benz certified pre-owned inventory inside the showroom today. Just minutes from the Calgary airport.
We are live from the Cat and Fiddle this afternoon on a very sunny, gorgeous patio. TV's on out here. You don't need the heaters, but if it's a little colder, the heaters make this place very pleasant as well. They have completely redone this patio here at the Cat and Fiddle. Absolutely recommend you come give it a shot. This is also the home of the Liverpool FC Calgary Fan Club. If you've never been to a Liverpool game, if you're a Premier League fan, if you're a soccer fan, or if you're a Liverpool fan, this is a different world when Liverpool is playing. You got to check it out. Easy to find, 16th Avenue and 5th Street Northwest. We are here until 6 o'clock. Big Show rolls on Sportsnet 960 The Fan.
The Big Show is live and streaming at sportsnet.ca/960. Sportsnet 960 The Fan, Calgary.
Right, I am busting it to the Saddle Dome in just a couple of seconds. Eric Francis is up next. Sportsnet's Eric Francis and Will to kick off the Sports Drive at 5 in just seconds. A reminder, if you want to win a $100 gift card here at the Cat and Fiddle, you can do so by texting the word fiddle in all capital letters in your first and last name to 960-960. If you do that and follow those instructions, then you'll be randomly entered into the draw for a $100 gift card thanks to our friends here at the Cat and Fiddle. Thank you to Stephen, Jason, and the gang for hosting us here all day long. And we're here on the patio, the outstanding patio, 16 big screen TVs inside.
It is legit.
Every Flames game with sound, perfect for NFL Sundays. 540 16th Avenue Northwest is where you can find us here at the Cat and Fiddle. 2 games in the preseason tonight. 3 more next week, and 2 weeks from tomorrow, the start of the regular season for the Calgary Flames. The end, how about the end of the preseason to the start of the regular season? They basically have a week between games after the preseason because they finish their exhibition schedule a week today, and then they start the following Saturday. So more than a week between games.
So 5 games in 7 days.